Honorable members, the numbers look very scanty. Sergeant, can you ring the bell?
If you're just joining us, the House lacks the requisite quorum to enable business to commence. The number required is 50, and so the Speaker has ordered the quorum bell to be rung. As we wait for the House to quorate, we'll continue to look at the order of business this afternoon. And the Land Laws Amendment Bill 2023, which will be read for the first time this afternoon, proposes a number of amendments to various acts, among them the Land Registration Act number 3 of 2012. The bill proposes to amend the Land Registration Act number 3 of 2012 to amend section 56 to provide that the registrar shall not register a charge where land rent has not been paid. The bill also proposes to amend the National Land Commission Act of number 5 of 2012 to remove time limits to review all grants and depositions of public land and to allow continuous receipt of historical land injustice claims to be heard after the year 2026 by upholding the provisions beyond the 10 years stated. The bill also proposes to amend the Land Act number 5 of 2012 to introduce amendments relating to general conditions, relating to leases, licenses, and agreements for public land, to introduce new provisions to regulate rent for the several periods and valuation of land for rent. In addition, the bill seeks to amend provisions relating to compulsory acquisition of interests in land. The bill does not delegate legislative powers, neither does it limit fundamental rights and freedoms. Also in the order of business this afternoon is the debate on the President's address, the one that, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 24, subsection 6, the thanks of this House be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in the address of His Excellency the President, delivered in Parliament on Thursday, 9th November 2023, and further, that this House notes the following report submitted by His Excellency the President in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 132, subsection 1c, and Article 240, subsection 7 of the Constitution laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 14th November 2023. That one, the 10th annual report of the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values and principles of governance. 2, the 10th annual report on the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya. And 3, the annual report to Parliament on the state of national security. The President did address this House. Of course, it was a joint sitting of the National Assembly and the Senate. The members will be given an opportunity to debate that address, and it is one of the businesses that the members will be engaging in this afternoon. If you're just joining us, we're waiting for the quorum to be achieved. The quorum bell is still ringing, and the number required for the business of the National Assembly to begin is 50. But just a quick reminder, there is a bill that will be read for the first time, the Land Laws Amendment Bill of 2023. This bill proposes amendments to various acts among them the Land Registration Act number 3 of 2012, the National Land Commission Act number 5 of 2012, and the Land Act number 6 of 2012. There is the member for Laikipia East, followed by the members for Kaloleni and Sirisia, making their ways into the chamber. Quorum has been achieved.
We now have quorum to transact our business. Clerk, shall we roll out the first order?
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Tom Odeke. Honorable Tom Odeke Nyatike.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I stand here to present a petition on behalf of the people of Nyatike. I, the undersigned, on behalf of the residents of Nyatike constituency, comprising of the residents from Nyatike West, Nyatike North, and Nyatike South sub-counties, draw the attention of the House to the following. That harsh climatic conditions in Nyatike constituency have become a great concern affecting the locals and even the government workers who are posted to work there. That Nyatike constituency meets the requirements of a hardship area due to its vastness of the 3 sub-counties, deplorable road networks, and that have hampered movements, human-wildlife conflicts, lack of clean drinking water, food scarcity, poor communication networks, and lack of basic social amenities, among others. That the geographical orientation of the said sub-counties are also characterized by barren sandy soils, rugged and rocky terrain, poor rainfall, perennial floods, and devastating poverty that continues to affect education standards in the area and general harsh climatic conditions. That the government workers posted to Nyatike constituency have been reluctant in taking up jobs in the constituency, including those promoted to work in the region, and those who take up the jobs seek for transfer after a very short time. That schools in Nyatike are extremely understaffed, with a few teachers available poorly motivated due to non-payment of hardship allowances by the government. That teachers in the neighboring sub-counties experiencing the same climatic and economic conditions are receiving hardship allowances, for instance, Suba North, Suba South, Kuria East, and Kuria West. That basic government services, including issuance of birth certificates and death certificates and other crucial services, have been greatly hampered because of non-viability of government workers to undertake them. That Nyatike constituency has been deprived quality government services due to inadequate working force occasioned by harsh climatic conditions. That despite Nyatike constituency having met the criteria used to qualify and gazette it as a hardship area, the government and the relevant ministry or agencies have not effected to date. That efforts made by the petitioners to have the matter addressed have not been successful, and that the matters raised in this petition are not pending before any court of law, constitutional, or any other legal body. Therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Public Petitions Committee, recommends to the relevant ministry agencies to gazette Nyatike West, Nyatike North, Nyatike South sub-counties as hardship areas, and makes any other appropriate recommendations it deems fit in addressing the circumstance raised in this petition. And your petitioners will ever pray. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Odege. Yes, Mother Wangari, Gilgil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to support the member for Nyatike on that petition. And Mr. Speaker, this issue of hardship area has made some of us almost sound like a broken record, I remember even last parliament, we brought it here. I brought it for Gilgil, and it is not clear, even today, who is supposed to gazette these areas as arid areas. And what that means, Mr. Speaker, is that we cannot retain teachers in rural schools. You will get schools in towns getting overpopulated with teachers, but far-flung schools are not able to retain teachers just because of this hardship allowance. And Mr. Speaker, the wider issue, even as the public petition considers this issue, is to actually clear to the House who is responsible for the gazettement. Secondly, what are the parameters that are used to actually decide that an area is an arid area, because you will get a county, Mr. Speaker, like Nakuru, not classified as a hardship area, but some areas, like in my constituencies, inside the county are hardship areas. So how do we get this classified? So I hope that the public petition in executing this issue can be able to tell us what are the parameters and how do you ensure that different constituencies in areas that are not ordinarily considered to be hardship areas are also considered, and positively so. That way, Mr. Speaker, we'll have a clear guideline so that the issue doesn't keep coming up as a sporadic issue from each and every constituency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
No, you can't choose yourself to speak. The member at the back, Julia Sunguli. Jared Okello, you are out of order.
Mr. Speaker, I want to support the member for Nyatike. Knowing the geography of Nyatike, I think of all the places that deserve to be hardship area, Nyatike really needs to be included. I didn't know for what reason, for instance, it's not included. I just want, however, to say, coming from a hardship area myself, to alert the member that there are good sides of being declared a hardship area, and there are also bad sides of it. We in Kilgoris are a hardship area, and we are unable to deal with the teacher crisis, Mr. Speaker, because the neighboring counties of Nyamira and Kisii and so on are not hardship areas, and teachers like to go to hardship areas. So we are trying to get our teachers, local teachers, to come back when we were who had been delocalized. Now they are being relocalized, and we cannot get teachers to go back to their homes because they like being in the hardship area. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to urge the members that most of the areas surrounding Kilgoris should actually be declared hardship areas so that people could go back to become teachers in their area. So, but Mr. Speaker, on a more serious note, I think it is very important that our honorable member be considered. Nyatike is indeed a very hardship area.
Daoud.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I support the petition by Honorable Odege. And Mr. Speaker, we should do it up to the location level, like what the Equalization Fund is doing. Because hardship areas, somebody, if I tell him Meru is, some parts of Meru are hardship areas, they would wonder, Meru does not look like a hardship area. But Mr. Speaker, some locations next to Tharaka, next to Isiolo, like Igembe Central, Igembe South, Tiganyas, and Imentis as well with Tharaka, which is a hardship area. So, Mr. Speaker, there needs to be a policy where hardship areas will be like locations and not complete districts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is that Chepalungu? Member for Chepalungu? Yes, Mheshimiwa.
Thank you so much, Speaker. I rise to support our colleague member of parliament from Nyatike, and equally to echo the sentiments made by Honorable Mother on the same, that we as a country ought to look at the parameters that we are using to qualify a specific region as hardship area. From my constituency, I border Emurua Digir to the south. Emurua Digir is actually gazetted as hardship area, while Chepalungu constituency is not. While I stand here today, Mr. Speaker, teachers from Chepalungu constituencies have refused to come back even after delocalization. And my constituency is actually facing shortage of teachers because of the same. It is high time. I am equally bringing a petition, and when it comes, I would really request the petition committee to look into the matter of Chepalungu constituency and consider it as one of the hardship area zones. Because in the last 1 year, in the last 2 years, there are areas in my constituency to the south, like Nogirwet, Kamongil, that have not even received a drop of rain, even in this era where the entire country is receiving high volumes of rain. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support the petition by Tom Odege, Honorable Member from Nyatike. Thank you.
Memusi Kanjori.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And Honorable Speaker, we just want to add our voices. I think all members here attest to the same thing. Let me first of all thank the member for Nyatike for bringing this petition. Honorable Speaker, it's the same story for most of the constituencies here. Kajiado Central, for example, is 5,208 square kilometers. It's not classified as a hardship area. And as Honorable Martha has said, when you ask TSC, TSC says it's not us. It comes from OP. When you go to OP, OP says it's TSC. So Honorable Speaker, as the Committee of Petitions considers this petition, I think it will be very important for members to be given an opportunity to all present views on this matter. Because Kajiado East, for example, which neighbors Kajiado Central, it's only a road that separates us. A teacher who's teaching in Mashuru primary school or secondary school, and a teacher who's teaching at Megumi primary or secondary school, one in Mashuru is under hardship allowance, and the other one on the other side doesn't receive any hardship allowance. So, Honorable Speaker, I support the petition and urge the committee to put in views of members. Thank you.
Jared Okello. Give him the mic.
You're mischievous here. I thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the same breath, allow me to also congratulate my brother, Honorable Dege. Honorable Speaker, just as my sister, Honorable Wangare, has said, this issue did arise in the last parliament. And many members in this house then rose and spoke about it, Honorable Speaker. But up to now, we do not know which office this matter falls under. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, even without the involvement of the petition committee, we would request your indulgence to give direction on this matter, Honorable Speaker. Nyando constituency sits right between Nyakach constituency and Muhoroni constituency, Honorable Speaker. Both constituencies, neighboring constituencies, are enjoying the benefits of hardship allowance. Nyando constituency, known for its perennial flooding, Honorable Speaker, does not. Yet, it is the flooding prototype that was used in order that these two constituencies could benefit from hardship allowance, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, this matter is very key to us, very important to members of this House, and we may ask for a complete re-evaluation of all the parameters that were engaged in order that constituencies were being earmarked for hardship allowance and those without. Finally, Honorable Speaker, no public officer, no state officer would want to serve in an area where there is no hardship allowance, yet in the neighborhood there is hardship allowance. So you have teachers posted to Nyando, for example, and the following week they're applying for transfers to go to either Muhoroni or Nyakach, Honorable Speaker. And all these problems are being presented to the doorsteps of members of parliament to deal with. Honorable Speaker, for once, help us. Last year, or the year before, there was a multi-agency team that went across the country to appraise itself on the hardship situation of every constituency. This report was thrown out of the window. We do not know where it is exactly up to now. So, Honorable Speaker, we indulge you to give direction, just as you have done before, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Rueda.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, kuna sababu za maeneo kuitwa eneo la ugumu. Watu wakisikia au wabunge wakisikia, kila mtu anafikiria zile pesa au faida wanazozipata. Mimi nakubali na naamini kweli Kenya yenyewe kukaa Kenya yote ni eneo la ugumu. Inakuwa ni hardship area. Lakini kuna wale wengine zaidi wana matatizo, na sisi kama wabunge, na hili bunge linafaa lifanye usawa kwa Wakenya wote. Hii eneo la ugumu, labda kama wabunge hawajui inamaanisha nini, kwa vile wanakaa huku hawaelewi wengine wanapata matatizo gani. Ningekuomba Bwana Spika, uchukue wabunge watembee, especially Lamu East. Inamaanisha hivi, mwalimu anayekuwa Lamu East ananunua maji lita 20 kwa shilingi 50. Huwezi mfananisha mwalimu aliyoko Nairobi au pale pengine. Inamaanisha hivi, mtu aliyoko Kiunga analipa 8,200 ndio apate ID. Wajua mimi nilivyoona Wakenya wanalalamika kupata kulipishwa 2,000 ID, nilikuwa nasema ni sawa sawa walipe kama sisi tunavyolipa. Kwa sababu sisi inaweza kufanyia hesabu ya rahisi, ukitoka Ishakani pikipiki ni shilingi 300 paka Kiunga. Kiunga ni shilingi 700 paka Mkokoni kwa gari. Mkokoni upande boat shilingi 3,000 paka Mokoe. Mokoe upande pikipiki shilingi 100 paka kwa ofisi ya vitambulisho. Hiyo hujalala, hujafanya chochote, huja kula, na uwezi kwenda siku moja na ukarudi. Hiyo ndio inamaanisha hardship area. Kule kwetu Lamu East Kiunga, kuna walimu wanapewa off, hawaendi off kwa sababu hawezi kuafford hiyo pesa ya kwenda nyumbani. Na wale wanaokaa kule haimaanishi ni Wabajuni peke yake, kuna ndugu zenu, kuna kila kabila ambao wako kule wanapata shida, lakini nyinyi mkisikia tu ni mgao au ni faida, kila mtu anataka yeye apate. Mwataka mkuwe reasonable wabunge. Kuna watu wanaumia hii Kenya, nyinyi mkikaa hapa kuna wengine wanaumia. Na ndio sahihi tunataka kufanya marekebisho. Kuna maeneo haina hata inchi moja ya tarmac ya barabara, ambapo sasa serikali hii ndio inaangalia mambo hayo. Juzi tumeenda ndio tip area ni nini. Kuna askari wako Kiangwi, hawaogi, wanaishi kama wanyama kwa sababu hawana maji. Maji kila ukichimba ni saline. Speaker, na kuomba tafadhali kwa hisani yako, panga wabunge waende wakaone hardship area inamaanisha nini. Asante.
Can we close there? You are saying the same thing. Yes. Ruku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hardship.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Better know this hardship area, Mr. Speaker, and we have excess teachers, 68 in primary school, who should be transferred from Better North to other areas. And we have excess teachers, primary school teachers, because of the hardship allowance, Mr. Speaker. TSC, Teacher Service Commission, is an independent constitutional body, Mr. Speaker, and therefore it should be in a position to come up with a human resource policy to rationalize this issue of hardship allowance and areas where there's no hardship allowance. It is possible, because it is important to retain talent. It is important to ensure each and every teacher is comfortable in a corner of the Republic of Kenya where he is working or she is working, so that we may not see many constituencies with excess primary and secondary school teachers and others which are lacking enough teachers. So I think, Mr. Speaker, it's upon Teacher Service Commission to regularize, to come up with a policy, to come up with ways of ensuring that these hardship allowance will not skew the way teachers are posted in different corners of the Republic of Kenya. It is upon the Teacher Service Commission to work on a policy which will guide how the staffing of each and every primary school, each and every secondary school, to ensure we have enough teachers and well remunerated, not necessarily through hardship allowance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, the member next to Irene Mayaka, member for? Jalash. I have not been seeing you in the house.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my first day back at work after my 30 days leave for sick leave, sir.
Oh, pole sana.
Asante.
And ugua pole.
Asante.
Go ahead.
You see, when I hear people mention about hardship areas, there is no any hardship area in this country more than Nairobi. Nairobi is even worse. Nairobi is even worse. This is even called Shamba la Mawe, to insinuate that this is where hardship begins. Come to my constituency in Langata, for example. We have a ward called High Rise Ward, where we have only one public school, one, Joash Olum Primary School. With one school in the whole ward, it means the whole ward and all their children go to the same school. Can you imagine what the teachers at Joash Olum Primary School are going through? And I wanted to just talk to my sister, Madam Rueda, that just talk about issues of Lamu County. Just talk about issues of Lamu County. Because if each one of us would tell you what our teachers, even in this city of Nairobi, are going through, you won't believe. Because us now, we are dealing with issues of overpopulated classrooms, understaffed schools, and that's what we are dealing with here in Nairobi. And the slum areas are even worse. Right now it is raining. It is even hard for the children to even get to school, or even the teachers themselves. Let's not even talk about the muggings and the killings that teachers are going through. Each and every single area in this country, let's declare Kenya a hardship country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I want to stop there. That petition is committed to the Public Petitions Committee to report back in 30 days. Those members who have got issues, you can go before the committee and articulate them. Honourable members, before I call Irene Mayaka, is it Irene Mayaka? No, not yet. We have not reached there. Allow me to acknowledge in the galleries university student leaders from different universities in Manyata constituency, Embu. We also have honorable members, I also wish to introduce to you a delegation of students under the National Junior Frontiers Incorporation, a program from the USA, who are seated in the public gallery. The delegation is led by Justice Jawad Rashid, a retired judge from the United States of America, the national president of the said organization. The National Junior Frontiers Incorporation is a youth educational and cultural program that prepares students for undergraduate and postgraduate studies, as well as orienting them to professions that they may venture into upon completion of their studies. As part of the program, students undertake international tours to educational institutions in various countries in the African diaspora to explore, learn, and interact with their peers. The delegation is therefore on a study visit to Kenya, Italia, learn and understand the history and workings of our parliament, as well as to undertake a tour of the facilities. On my own behalf and that of the National Assembly, I welcome them together with the university students from Manyata to the House of Parliament and to have fruitful engagements during the visit. The member for Manyata has asked me to give him 1 minute to welcome the students. You can combine with the American group.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and Santi Sana for that. Honorable Speaker, I have the student leaders from all universities in Embu County and Manyata constituency in specific, and I want to first tell them welcome to the National Assembly, a house where we have leaders that are making laws impacting in their lives and the whole of the country. Honorable Speaker, I say this having seen them conducting an election that was so well organized that the student leaders that were elected, I was wowed and I said they need to visit the National Assembly and see how business is conducted. Honorable Speaker, we have to really do something about our student leaders and the model that we are electing them this time, because we need the vibrancy of the previous years, of the yesteryears, coming back to our student leaders. And Honorable Speaker, I also want to say that I call upon the government to release the help money and the funds for the universities so that our students can continue learning and can continue surviving in the universities, Honorable Speaker, as urgent as possible, and so that their lives can move on. Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. Yes. And on behalf of myself and all the members, I welcome the student leaders together with other delegations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 14th November 2023. 1. Addressed by His Excellency the President Dr. William Samoei Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya. 2. The 10th Annual Report on the measures taken and progress advanced in the realization of national values and principles of governance. 3. The 10th Annual Report on the measures progress made in fulfilling the international obligation of the Republic of Kenya. 4. The Annual Report to Parliament on the state of the national security. And 5. The Legal Notice number 175 of 2023 relating to the Public Finance Management Ulinzi Prime Health Services Fund regulations of 2023. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to lay.
Next order. Yes. Majority Leader, under Roman 5. I'm told you have not laid the document. Do you have the document with you? On now, Roman 5 is stayed to tomorrow, so I order that to be expunged from the Hansard. Be ready to lay the document tomorrow. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
There's a statement from nominated member Irene Mayaka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to request for a statement regarding the clearance by the Kenya Revenue Authority at points of entry. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44, subsection 2, part C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning regarding the recent directives issued by the Kenya Revenue Authority regarding customs and duties levied on items for passengers traveling through the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Honorable Speaker, the Kenya Revenue Authority issued a directive seeking to tax travelers or passengers arriving into the country from international destinations to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport with items worth US dollars 500 and above. The directive stated that all goods, whether new or used, valued at beyond 75,000 Kenya shillings, must be declared and subjected to taxation at various entry points. This also includes personal and household items that have already been used. Honorable Speaker, these issues have elicited widespread disconnect and have the potential of adversely affecting our tourism sector, which is important to our national economy. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on the following. Number 1, What is the legal basis and framework for the Customs and Duties Directive, particularly the 75,000 Kenya shillings value cap for any used and personal items? Number 2, what steps have been taken to ensure that the Customs and Duties Directive is enforced within the boundaries of existing laws and regulations, and what legal safeguards are in place to prevent arbitrary action by authorities? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Irene. Kimani, that is directed to you. 2 weeks? 1 week. So you can bring the statement on Tuesday next week. Yes, Ruku? There's no provision for commenting on or debating a statement.
Yes.
So if that's what you want to do, you're out of order. If there's something else, I'll allow you.
The same issue was raised today in the Committee of Delegation and Registration.
It may have, but on the floor, there is no provision for you to comment on a statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Take your seat. Out of order, Okello. Next.
Order number 8, special motion, consideration of a nominee for appointment as a member of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Board. Question to be put.
All the honorable members on their feet, take your seats. Honorable member talking to Gikaria, take your seat. Take your seat. Thank you. Honorable members, at order number 8, I'll now put the question, which is that taking into consideration the findings of the Select Committee on the National Government Constituencies Development Fund in its report on the vetting of a nominee for appointment as a member of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Board, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 7th November 2023, and pursuant to sections 15(1)(e) of the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Act 2015 and Section 8(1) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, this House approves the appointment of Honorable Gabriel Kago Mukuha as a member of the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Board. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, inspection of various one-stop border posts in the Northern Corridor in the East African Community. Question to be put.
David Speaker, take your seat. Honorable members, at order number 9, I now put the question that this House adopts the report of the Select Committee on Regional Integration on its inspection of various one-stop border posts in the Northern Corridor in the East African Community, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 5th July 2023. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 10, motion, sessional paper number 1 of 2023 on Kenya National Population Policy for Sustainable Development. Question to be put.
Milemba, take your seat quickly. Farah, take your seat or disappear to wherever you're going. Honorable members, I now put the question at order number 10, that this House adopts the report of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on its consideration of sessional paper number 1 of 2023 on the Kenya National Population Policy for Sustainable Development, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 4th October 2023, and further approves the sessional paper number 1 of 2023. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 11, the Land Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 65 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to make amendments to laws that relate to land.
Honorable members, before we go to the next order, I want to bring to your attention that following repeated requests on the Speaker to give direction on the dress code in the House, next week on Tuesday, I'll deliver a comprehensive direction on the dress code. It will be very comprehensive and far-reaching, and I want to encourage all of you to abide by the ruling and direction. It's based on longevity of the Speaker in this House, comparable jurisdiction, our own rules and standing orders that govern the dress code. And I can assure you that the House Business Committee has weighed in on this and advised that in the manner in which we have been going, the decorum of the House is sinking to its lowest. Because members just come to this House dressed in any manner they like. Our ladies in the House Business Committee even took issue in the manner their own colleague ladies dress in some way. And I'll give a very comprehensive direction so that from there on, enforcement will be left to the Sergeant at Arms. Anybody who will come dressed in a manner other than what we shall have advised will be deemed to be a stranger in the House, so that we maintain decorum, respect the dignity of the House in every respect. Yes, Julia Sunguli, what is out of order?
Mr. Speaker, you being the main constitutional upholder in this House, understand that most of all your decisions are very, very binding. And it was indeed in order, Mr. Speaker, for you to ask for a bit of public participation, that members of this House make comments, especially because I come from a constituency that would like to have an input on how Kenyans should dress in their national house. So let's encourage some public participation before you make this big statement.
Julia Sunguli, the Constitution says we exercise our power directly or through our elected representatives. Your elected representatives are members of the House Business Committee, and they have made their findings and stand on the matter. So you are ably represented, and whatever we decide has been canvassed properly by your elected representatives as is provided under Article 1 of the Constitution. Next order. Before we call the next order, members, I have also directed the clerk and the clerks at the table that because of the manner in which you have been mismanaging the screen, members walk in at 1:30, log in, and then block the screen. The screen remains full before we finish the prayer. Before any order is called, the screen is full. From now henceforth, at the end of every order, the screen will be wiped clean. Then you log in on the order that is coming so that we can be able to know who wants to speak on a particular order and who doesn't. You've seen the embarrassing situation where the Speaker calls out a member and he says, not on that one. You call another member, not on that one, and yet you are top on the screen. So the clerk and the clerks at the table will enforce that as well, so that when an order is called, then you key in. Of course, the chair will exercise discretion. Sometimes we take into account gender balance, regional balance in debates. We take into account party balance. We take into account even age balance. We have very young members whom we want to grow. We give them sometimes opportunities and so on and so forth, but we'll be strictly following the order on the screen. Like now we have wiped clean. when the majority leader starts moving the motion, those who key in will then be called upon to speak. I hope that will give us a little order than members, some raise both their hands, others stand up, others shout point of order when it's not a point of order, and so on. Next order.
Order number 12, motion, debate on the President's address, first day.
Honorable members, before the majority leader moves the motion, I also want to add on the issue of the dress code that the direction I will give will also cover your conduct in committees. Remember that the committees in which you sit are an extension of this chamber. And I've been horrified to see members turning up in committees dressed in jeans and t-shirts and all manner of regalia. So whatever will give direction, the chairman of committees will be enjoined to enforce that direction so that the decorum you are expected to display in this chamber is the same decorum you display in the committees when members of the public appear before you and you look like a street fighter. You don't display a very good image of this house. This motion coming, you know that the mover has a maximum of 30 minutes. A maximum of 30 minutes. Every member, and the minority leader as well, 20 minutes for the minority leader, sorry. And every member contributing has 10 minutes, 5 minutes, or 5 minutes. But you don't have to exhaust your time. If you make your point and there are as many of your colleagues to speak, you can give way. Secondly, this motion will be debated the whole of this afternoon, will be debated tomorrow morning, and we will move a closure at the end of the day after tomorrow afternoon sitting. So we are allocated this afternoon, tomorrow morning, the whole morning after preliminaries, and then the afternoon thereafter we close to give way to other business on Thursday. Majority Leader, the floor is yours. Pardon? Yes, you can log in now, those who want to speak.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 24(6), the thanks of the House be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in the address by His Excellency the President delivered in Parliament on Thursday, 9th November 2023. And further that this House notes the following report submitted by His Excellency the President in fulfillment of the provisions of Article 132(1)(c) and Article 247 of the Constitution, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 14th November 2023. One is the 10th annual report on the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values and principles of governance. Two is the 10th annual report on the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya. And three, the annual report to Parliament on the state of our national security. Honorable Speaker, as indicated, His Excellency the President did give his State of the Nation address last week on Thursday, and allow me, Honorable Speaker, to thank all the members of Parliament in both houses who sat patiently through the close to 1 hour that the President gave his State of the Nation address. Honorable Speaker, I must also appreciate His Excellency the President. First, from his opening statement, he did note that he was coming before the democratically elected representatives of the people to discharge what is his constitutional mandate, as I have said, under Article 132(1)(c). And he stated that was to come and give an account to the people of Kenya on the measures taken by their government under his leadership to give full expression and effect to the soul of our constitutional dispensation by implementing our national values and principles of governance as cited in Article 10 of our Constitution. Honorable Speaker, I take this opportunity to commend the President because of his noting that he was not only playing his role as a leader charged under our Constitution to deliver a certain mandate and certain reports to the House and to the people of Kenya through the elected representatives, but also he was being accountable to the people of Kenya on the progress that has been made by his administration and the government that he leads on behalf of the people of Kenya. And indeed, I noted with excitement, Honorable Speaker, and satisfaction that we have a president who now appreciates that this is a government that belongs to the people of Kenya. And in his opening statement, Honorable Speaker, he spoke to the measures being taken by the people's government. And if I may paraphrase, Honorable Speaker, actually read out, he said the measures taken by their government, the people's government, under his leadership. And Honorable Speaker, I therefore take this opportunity to commend His Excellency the President for recognizing that he is only one amongst equals, amongst not just the leaders that serve our nation, but also the people of Kenya, whom he has been bestowed with the unique and great responsibility of leading a government that belongs to the people of Kenya. And for that, I commend His Excellency the President and his administration. Honorable Speaker, the President went to great lengths to not only speak to the progress made so far in terms of realizing our national values and principles of governance, but also, Honorable Speaker, in the realization of all the pledges and commitments that the President and the Kenya Kwanza regime committed to the people of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, for the members who are there in the nation, that everybody in the nation who was listening to the President, they will remember him taking the country back to where we began from, where he took over the reins of leadership in September last year, on the 13th of September, when he took office. The very first things he had to do, noting that he needed to undertake an urgent transformation of our economy to stop and reverse the negative trends of runaway unemployment, what he described as a yawning inequality and widespread poverty, which were denying millions of Kenyans their dignity and extinguishing their dreams of living in a country where they can be proud to be Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, the President spoke to the mass appeal of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda that he campaigned, the platform that he campaigned on, and many of us in Kenya Kwanza campaigned on. And I appreciate, Honorable Speaker, that the President did reaffirm his commitment and that of his administration to bring the national values and principles of governance to life in order to significantly enhance the well-being of each and every individual in our country and to promote the unity of our country, the stability of our nation, and the security and development of our beloved motherland. Honorable Speaker, in his exposition, the President took us back to where he found an economy that was struggling, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, members will note from his address what he said, that it was important for all of us as a country, or rather, it was important for us all to point out that we began implementation of the mandate to transform Kenya's economy from the bottom up under extremely difficult circumstances. Honorable Speaker, the President was quick to say that without excusing failure or justifying inability or omission to do necessary work, but rather to emphasize the significance of the progress made so far. underscoring the possibility of transformation under very daunting conditions, and to express the well-founded confidence that when sufficient progress is made, we shall all as a nation do much more and go much further in delivering the Kenya we want for our generation and for posterity, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me also to commend and note the President's appreciation that one, he took over leadership of this country at a time that our country's economy was fledgling, and using the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, he set out on a mission to transform our country's economy, and he notes that he has no time and no space to give excuses for any failure or even to justify inability by government or his administration or omission to do the necessary work. This Honorable Speaker tells us that we have a leader and a president who is leading an administration where there is an appreciation of where we are coming from. He knows, and we have an appreciation of the progress made so far. And Honorable Speaker, if members go through the entire speech, and I believe the entire address is now at the table office, Honorable Speaker, members will be able to draw reference to it. The President was able to enumerate the progress made so far, and even without giving any excuses, Honorable Speaker, but appreciating that we are coming from a very difficult global recession with the COVID pandemic recovery still ongoing around the world, Honorable Speaker, with wars not just in the Middle East, but also in Europe, Honorable Speaker, in Russia and Ukraine. Honorable Speaker, with disruptions to the global supply chain and disruptions that came with the drought, Honorable Speaker, that was built to have been the worst drought in 4 decades. In almost 40 years, Honorable Speaker, the Kenya Kwanza government came into leadership in the midst of a drought that was built as the worst drought in 40 years of our existence as a nation, in a period of close to 60 years, Honorable Speaker. And without giving any excuses, Honorable Speaker, the President enumerated the measures that the government has taken to safeguard the well-being of our nation and to facilitate the recovery of our economy from the bottom up. Honorable Speaker, right from this fertilizer subsidy that the President spoke to, pointing even to farmers that he spoke to. Honorable Speaker, members will remember the mentions of Samuel Chacha in Kuria, Albert Munyi in Embu, farmers who were speaking to the President and appreciating the impact of the subsidized fertilizer, Honorable Speaker, in not only improving the productivity of their farms as individual farmers, but also in contributing to the 18 million extra bags that have been delivered by our patriotic and hardworking farmers, courtesy of the subsidized fertilizer, and of course, with the grace of the Almighty God in providing us with adequate rains in the last 6 months, and even the ongoing rains, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the President did not stop at that. He enumerated the challenges that will come even with the El Nino rains. With maize harvested now close to an additional 18 million bags coming into our supply chain, Honorable Speaker, in a way, Honorable Speaker, putting an extra 200,000 acres under production. But also, Honorable Speaker, the challenges that will come now with the El Nino rains, that part of this maize, especially that maize being harvested now and in the last few weeks, may not be in a position to be dried, courtesy of the current prevailing weather conditions. But appreciating that, Honorable Speaker, the President did note that the National Cereals and Produce Board will also be assisting farmers to dry their maize and indeed at a very subsidized price, at almost a fifth of the price of 70 shillings down from 350 shillings per bag. And indeed, he indicated that on Wednesday of last week, the first consignment of 100 mobile dryers for use by farmers around the country had already docked at our port in Mombasa, ready for use. Honorable Speaker, he did not forget our dairy farmers, who he indicated that the government is in the process now of mapping out the production areas of milk in our country to ensure that we also have coolers and milk processing facilities ready for use for farmers to ensure that the farmers are able to store their milk in a very hygienic manner and to secure post-harvest or post-milking losses by ensuring that this milk is not only cooled but is transported under hygienic conditions to ensure that our farmers reap the highest benefit in terms of the prices that they get from their milk, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, coffee farmers, tea farmers were not left behind. His Excellency the President enumerated even what our fishermen and fisherfolk down in Nyanza, in the coast, and even in the mountain, where people are now engaged in fish farming. Honorable Speaker, that the blue economy, Honorable Speaker, space is one of the areas that the government has really invested in. And the President, Honorable Speaker, I remember him speaking to about 22 new fish landing sites in 9 counties in Nyanza and the coast regions, Honorable Speaker. And I have been fortunate to have accompanied the President at least in Kabonyo, Kanyagwar, Kabonyo Kanyagwar, in Kisumu County, and also in Kilifi County, where my brother, the Deputy Leader of Minority, hails from, to commission some part of these 22 new fish landing sites. And in a way, Honorable Speaker, this is one investment that is going to change in a big manner and in a big way how those communities around our lakes and our water bodies, whether be it in the lake in Nyanza, Naivasha, Bogoria, Turkana, or even in the coast, Honorable Speaker, we will be able to reap maximum benefit from the fish that they're able to extract from our water bodies and be able to get these fish processed and marketed from very hygienic conditions at the landing sites, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on increasing productivity, Honorable Speaker, the President also did allude to the challenges that he found in office. Honorable Speaker, at this particular time, the conversation since last night, be it on social media, in hotels, and even at our own members' lounge here, Honorable Speaker, has revolved around the cost of living, and principally around the cost of fuel. Honorable Speaker, the President did allude in his address to the nation on some of the challenges that he found in office when he took charge. That, Honorable Speaker, the President came to settle bills of close to 60+ billion shillings on account of fuel subsidies and another close to 4 to 8 billion shillings on account of consumption subsidies that were geared towards subsidizing maize flour, I think, and sugar in the last 2 months of the last regime, Honorable Speaker. And members will remember, these are measures that were taken in the run-up to the elections. And Honorable Speaker, there has been a clamor for the reintroduction of these subsidies. And I am glad, Honorable Speaker, that the President went to great length to explain to the people of Kenya on the difficulty of entrenching consumer subsidies vis-a-vis having a system where you have sustainable production subsidies, Honorable Speaker. Because, Honorable Speaker, as the President stated, it was left to this regime or to his administration to settle the bills of the consumption subsidies that were effected in the last 8 weeks. Subsidies that were geared towards enticing the people of Kenya to vote in a particular way, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is one thing to seek political popularity, and it is another thing to do the right thing for posterity and for future generations of this country. Honorable Speaker, I just came from Stony Athi, where we are retreating on the national dialogue process. And the question of the cost of living is one of the key issues that we are having to deal with even at the national dialogue. And I want to encourage Kenyans to continue conversing and dialoguing with each other, because it is not until we are able to look at each other in the eyes and tell each other the truth that it is not tenable, Honorable Speaker, to subsidize fuel. It is not tenable, Honorable Speaker, to continue shoring up our shilling against other hard currencies. And I must commend the current administration in the central bank, because they have told us we have to deal with economic fundamentals as they stand without shoring up our shilling against the dollar or other hard currencies, Honorable Speaker. That we have to deal with the economic fundamentals and deal with sustainable economic solutions for the benefit of our generation and future generations. Honorable Speaker, we risked in the last 2 months of the last regime, Honorable Speaker, driving our nation into a pit that we would never have seen light at the end of the tunnel from that pit. But I am glad, Honorable Speaker, from the measures enumerated by the President and what Kenyans can see, this country is on the right trajectory in terms of recovery of the economy, Honorable Speaker. And I said it is one thing to say and do all the right things for the ears. What will excite the masses, Honorable Speaker? It will be very easy for the President today to act populist, like those ahead of him did. Subsidize maize flour, subsidize fuel, Honorable Speaker. Or even today declare that we have done away with VAT on fuel, for instance. But Honorable Speaker, the question that we must look each other in the eye and ask ourselves, even if we had not a single tax on fuel today, will the cost of fuel continue to rise amidst the global rise of oil prices, Honorable Speaker? And the straight answer, Honorable Speaker, whether we like it or not, whether there are taxes loaded onto some of the products that we are dealing with, like fuel, if the global oil prices continue to rise on account of the war in the Arab world, in the Middle East, or in Ukraine and Russia, Honorable Speaker, if you are not able to change certain fundamentals like those of that war, if you are not able to change fundamentals as the global supply chain disruptions that came with the COVID pandemic, if you are not able to reverse the climate change issues, Honorable Speaker, the West, in Europe, in the Americas, Honorable Speaker, they are now at the onset of winter. The demand for fuel for heating in their homes is at a very high level, Honorable Speaker, and demand for fuel will continue being there. Honorable Speaker, until and unless we deal with those fundamentals, we can only be lying to each other and lying to our people. Pretending to shout from rallies and funerals that we can subsidize fuel, Honorable Speaker. Our economy today cannot bear the burden of subsidizing fuel, Honorable Speaker. But I must note, Honorable Speaker, that being an administration and a regime that is being sensitive and alive to the realities of the challenges, global challenges that pervade the economy in the world, Honorable Speaker, this administration, Honorable Speaker, even with the consistent rise in global oil prices, Honorable Speaker, using the Fuel Stabilization Fund, at least this administration has been able to preempt very high spikes and standardize the pricing using that stabilization fund, Honorable Speaker. And I want to believe, Honorable Speaker, even in the expected review of oil prices or fuel prices this month, the use of that stabilization fund will be utilized. And that is the right way to do things, Honorable Speaker. Otherwise, we can continue subsidizing fuel, continue accumulating the kind of bills that we are accumulating to the tune of 60 billion shillings for a period of only 7 to 8 months, but sink our economy and our country into a debt hole that we will never get out of, Honorable Speaker. The joy that we must celebrate today as a nation, that even with the difficulty around the world, Honorable Speaker, our nation, our country today, Honorable Speaker, as the President stated, we can confidently stand up high with our shoulders and our necks high and tell the world markets that we are ready to start repaying our Eurobond. We shall not be defaulting on any of our international financial obligations, Honorable Speaker. And I must commend this administration and the President for the measures taken to ensure that we do not take the route that has been taken by other African countries. Honorable Speaker, let me say it all begins and ends with leadership. With the right leadership, you do the right things at the right time. With the wrong leadership, Honorable Speaker, you will be tempted to do all the populist things that we speak about in funerals and rallies over the weekends, Honorable Speaker, that we can afford, knowing very well that we can't, Honorable Speaker, to subsidize food, to subsidize fuel. Honorable Speaker, all the things that we cannot afford as a country, Honorable Speaker, we must be bold enough to look at each other in the eyes, to look at Kenyans in the eyes, and tell them that we were in a bad place, but we are getting somewhere, Honorable Speaker. I am very confident, Honorable Speaker, and I know those who never voted for this government, those who never believed in this administration, those who do not support this administration would not agree with me or agree with the President when he says that this economy has now been stabilized. We are now out of the hole. We can now see the horizon. We can see where we are going, Honorable Speaker, as an economy. That may not be clear to those who believed in subsidizing consumption, Honorable Speaker. That may not be clear to those who believed that state capture, Honorable Speaker, and the fight against corruption was a war to wage against individuals and not something to do for posterity, Honorable Speaker. I am glad the President spoke and addressed the nation on what is his administration not only intends to do, but is doing on the fight against corruption, Honorable Speaker. And I know many of us, again, those who never believed in this President and in this administration, have taken issues, Honorable Speaker, with a mambo ni matatu phrase. But, Honorable Speaker, that is just how bold we have to be. Honorable Speaker, His Excellency the President did allude to the conflict of interest bill. And without anticipating debate, Honorable Speaker, that bill is before this House. I wait with bated breath, Honorable Speaker, to sit and listen to how many of us in this House who pontificate on the fight against corruption will stand to oppose the conflict of interest bill that stands to decisively deal with matters, state capture, and the fight against corruption, Honorable Speaker. The shoring up of our interest, of our shilling against the hard currency, Honorable Speaker. Kenyans may not know that on account of state capture, our shilling, our foreign exchange reserves were being manipulated on account of state capture, because those who held instruments of power were also players in the banking sector. Government agencies, government departments were being forced to bank with particular banks, private banks, Honorable Speaker. But we have opted, Honorable Speaker, out of magnanimity, not to look back, but to forge ahead, knowing that we found an economy that was in the doldrums, without looking back at who did what through state capture, Honorable Speaker, to focus on what needs to be done now, urgently, to get our economy working again, and not working for those in government today, not working to those who are policymakers today, but working for the downtrodden, working for those at the bottom of the economic pyramid, Honorable Speaker. We speak about social protection, Honorable Speaker. What greater social protection can we speak about if not the National Social Insurance Fund, Honorable Speaker, that seeks to create a social insurance fund for millions of Kenyans who cannot afford their health care today, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we may speak until the cows come home.
You are on home stretch, Majority Leader. You are on.
I have noted the light, Honorable Speaker, and that's why I'm saying I can speak until the cows come home. But I cannot overemphasize the need for all of us to stand up as patriots and do the right thing for our economy. For all of us to stand up and join in the fight against corruption for the sake of our generation and future generations. For all of us to stop being populist and do the right thing to get this economy back on its track, even without looking back, Honorable Speaker, but forging ahead together, united as a nation, for the posterity and prosperity of our great people and our nation, our motherland, Kenya, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I now beg to note the thanks of the House on the State of the Nation address and request the Deputy Leader of Majority, the Honorable Owen Baya, member for Kilifi North, to second this motion.
Honorable Mbaya, you have 5 minutes to second.
Not 10.
5.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, one, I want to note the thanks of the House for the President's State of the Nation address, by one, noting the President's emphasis on transformation. That transformation is underway. A president gives hope to his nation. A president looks at the sunny side of things for the country. And President William Ruto did just that when he came to this House to deliver his State of the Nation address. That the many things that he has done cumulatively, there is hope for this country. A hope that his better or his bottom-up economic transformation agenda is going to transform this country, put it on the steady, and that this country is looking forward to better days than where we have come from. So I want to commend the President for this speech, a speech filled with hope, a speech filled with promise, but also a speech filled with important items and activities that he has undertaken in the first 1 year to ensure that the country, this ship has been put on the steady. Honorable Speaker, one of the most important things that I thought I pick in this speech, Honorable Speaker, is that better is not just about economic transformation, but it is also about, as he states it in his fourth paragraph, it's also about social justice. It's about inclusivity. It's about democracy. It's also about protection of the marginalized. Honorable Speaker, very many people did not go into the depth of what better is about. It is about social justice. Very many people in this country have suffered, and very many people have suffered under state apparatus in this country. We heard about the many killings that were being carried about by DCI. We heard about the Rivayala bodies. We heard about people being killed by instruments of government. Better has brought that protection of the marginalized, protection of human rights, and protection of the state of Kenya and the people that live within it. So, Honorable Speaker, as we talk about transformation, we are not just the country economically, but also to transform the social justice, to transform the fight against corruption in this country, and Honorable Speaker, to also to bring law and order. Honorable Speaker, very many people, I'm sure, were surprised when the president actually fired some of the officers in government. Some of them were taken to court very fast on allegation of corruption, something that we had not seen, to drag in investigation for many years in the past. But Honorable Speaker, we have seen what better also means in the social justice sector. Honorable Speaker, if you go through the president's speech, you also see that he notes and he is aware that we are in extreme difficult conditions economically as a country. He knows that. He doesn't run away from that fact. He notes it, but he does not just note and step there, but he gives us a way in which we can get out of the doldrums that we find ourselves in this country. First, Honorable Speaker, he talks about the transformation in agriculture, the inputs he has made, the kind of infrastructure laid out in agriculture. Kenya is still an agrarian country. The manufacturing in this country will come from nowhere else but from agriculture. It behoves on the head of state to ensure that he develops the sector of agriculture. And Honorable Speaker, the subsidies in fertilizer, the seeds, the input, the credit that goes into agriculture, Honorable Speaker, will bring us positive results as we trudge on the way. Honorable Speaker, I note with appreciation when the president says we are putting the shame of hunger to rest for this country. And I think every year this parliament sits back one time and says, you know, we have hunger in this country. We need to mobilize resources. But the president has decided to take the bull by its horn and has told this House in his State of the Nation address that henceforth we must put to shame the issues of hunger in this country, that we must stop, that every time we have to give food to people because they're hungry, we need to grow food, everybody needs to grow food so that there is enough food for the nutrition and also for manufacturing in this country. Honorable Speaker, the President also notes the transformation in education. In the 12th Parliament when we were here, we had very many issues with CBC. And everybody was apprehensive about how CBC was going to be, what junior secondary was going to be, what senior secondary was going to be. But the president has steadied the ship, and in his State of the Nation address, he talks about it with passion, with precision, that the education sector in this country is on the right foot and is going to steer it in the right foot. As I can see the light is on, Honorable Speaker. But you know, I am on the high. And
your time is up. You know your time, honorable members, when you are given an opportunity. Organized manner. I now propose the question, honorable members, that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 24.6, the thanks of this House be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in the address of His Excellency the President, delivered in Parliament on Thursday, 9th November 2023, and further, that this House notes the following reports submitted by His Excellency the President in fulfillment of provisions of Article 132(1)(c) and 247 of the Constitution laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 14th November 2023. 1. The 10th Annual Report on the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values and principles. 2. The 10th Annual Report on the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya. And 3. The Annual Report to Parliament on the state of national security. Victor Koech. Yes, Honorable Ruku.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on point of order standing order number 97. Following the immense interest of this presidential speech or address to this House, we reduce the time from 10 to 5 minutes so that every member from both sides.
The time is already 5. I already gave you direction that the mover had 30 minutes, the seconder 5 minutes, every member speaking 5 minutes.
Okay.
And the leader of minority, even when he wishes to speak, 20 minutes.
That's okay. Thank you.
The
for your
following members will also
Thank you.
have 10 minutes each if they wish to speak. The chairman of the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal, the chairman of Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence and Foreign, and the chairman, Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs. Those three, if they speak, will be given 10 minutes each. Member for Chepalungu. And the chairman of?
Thank you.
He's a stranger to the standing orders of this House.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. While I rise once again to speak on the speech by the President of the Republic of Kenya, while doing the same as actually fulfilling what the Constitution requires of him under Article 132(1)(c, the President, while addressing the nation, he chose to speak from his heart. He actually spoke about the issues touching on common mwananchi. This is a president who knows what the Kenyan wants out of him. The president deliberately chose not to continue with the culture of borrowing. The president talked about the subsidy, and he deliberately chose to go to the way of doing subsidy in production. While doing the same, we as a country have realized that the fertilizer prices have now come down by a margin of 4,000 in a record 1 year. In so doing, the production of maize has increased by almost 80%. This is in line with bringing the level of anger that our people have been facing for so long. Mr. President as well talked about what he is doing and what the government, not his government, but our government is doing to increase the cost of milk. And particularly, this is so dear to my constituency that solely depends on milk production as a way of living. Mr. Speaker, as I speak today, my constituents are depending on milk with the cost of 31 shilling a liter. With the intervention, deliberate intervention that the president wants to bring, that is in terms of installation and doing surveys on where to install milk coolers. And actually, the prices now for milk is going to depend on the quality of milk that you produce. This is in line with the government agenda of increasing the prices for milk, and it will go in and in improving the economy of our country. Our president talked about the agenda that was our campaign manifesto, that is universal health care. He has deliberately, and we have deliberately, chosen to do digitization, which is going to have each and every one of Kenyan accessing universal health care. Our president, in this case, has talked about so many things, and among them, he has deliberately refused to even borrow on recurrent expenditure. Previous governments have been known to be borrowing for recurrent expenditure. The president has said that as a country, we are going to live not beyond our means, but we are going to live within our means, which is going to improve greatly on our economy as a country. Mr. Speaker, with a few remarks, I want to support the motion and to echo our president for knowingly knowing what the Kenyan wants, what the common mwananchi wants. This is in line with the talk. There is a pastor in Mombasa who said there is a period between giving a promise and a period in which you deliver the promise. The period in between delivering a promise and giving a promise is called wait. The president has told us that our government, within the shortest time possible, is going to work on the manifesto, and upon recovery of our economy, our roads are going to be constructed. We are going to get better electricity accessibility. We are going to get better accessibility to water, to clean water. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I support the motion.
Thank you, Victor. Shakil Shabir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I would like to comment on the speech of His Excellency the President. Mr. Speaker, His Excellency the President has recognized and based himself on the three pillars in the Constitution: the pillars of economic justice, the pillars of political justice, and the pillars of social justice. In the speech, I have heard that they recognize the fact that we are in hard times. In hard times, you have to take hard decisions, and we must also be able to cut down our costs. What I didn't hear, and I'm sure it's there, is the fact that there must be certain deliberate way to reduce our costs, reduce the amount we are spending ourselves. Mr. Speaker, I come here in Parliament and I see flowers, 5,000 shillings per setting. I think those are the things we need to stop, not only here, but in all the ministries. Mr. Speaker, sir, His Excellency the President, I was so pleased to hear about his issues on corruption. Mr. Speaker, sir, they've talked about state capture. We've never really dealt with the name corruption, but I was so pleased this time that he was able to clarify what his stand is on corruption. And if the executive will of corruption is there, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are going to deal with this. We will be able to sort out many of the issues of corruption. I was most pleased about his instruction or request, not instruction, request, that the conflict of interest bill be passed quickly. Mr. Speaker, sir, as you understand, that the rain started beating us very much when under the Moi regime, or was it the earlier regime, civil servants were allowed to trade, were allowed to have businesses. And no matter what we tried, the executive was never going to listen to us. Now I think if I don't want to...
That was not in the Moi regime, it was in the Kenyatta one.
I apologize, sir. And I did say I think maybe the earlier one, the Kenyatta regime. And I think that has gone on and on. At this moment in time, you're finding the Procurement Act. You're finding so many of these things. The budgeted corruption that takes place is over 80% of the corruption that we have. So I am very pleased in the President's remarks that he's going to take swift action. And Easy Matatu, I am quite agreed with the Matatu if he says that. If Mambo Matatu, Nina agree. If the issue is that they are going to take them to Uhuru Park and hang those guys who've been involved in grand corruption, I support. But I think the issue here is, the fact of the issue is that our poor are getting poorer. Economic justice here is not being dealt in the proper manner. And I plead with the President and his team to make sure that we start cutting the cost from the rich, the top, and the poor get benefit. Right now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the poor pay more for unga in the slums. They pay more for water. They pay more for everything. So that is economic injustice. And I feel that is very much the thing. I agree with the majority leader, and I definitely agree with the President. Subsidization is not the way out. It is just digging a hole even further to go down. I'd like to say that this is the sort of thing that we need to do. Mr. President, sir, the debt office must be made independent. Let us make the debt office autonomous so they're not being monitored by others. And finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, I suggest that us members of parliament should fly economy when we are going anywhere on our visits abroad, like the British are doing, like the Americans are doing, not business class, which is 5 times more than the economy class. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me that time.
Doris Donya.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I note very well when children are taught in school and they are told of developing countries and those that are developed. When we come to Kenya, Mr. Speaker, the major thing that we should do as leaders is to ensure on how to eradicate poverty and, of course, extreme hunger. When I follow well on the speech of our president, I noted that there are some things which were not coming out clear, more especially on the price of gorogoro of maize. Immediately, he spoke of 60 to 70, Mr. Speaker. I got excited, but when I went to Kisii, the price of gorogoro of maize is between 120 and 150, Mr. Speaker. So there is still that gap on how to eradicate poverty and hunger. When you meet people, Mr. Speaker, on the streets, what they want to hear is when are the youths going to get employment? When are our people going to have good roads? When are our schools going to have sufficient water, Mr. Speaker? As at this season, it's raining well in our land. The problem is immediately after the rains, Mr. Speaker, we are still going to experience hunger. What I suggest is if we could have the Ministry of Water coming up with ways in which we can harvest this water so that during the drought season, our people benefit. Apart from prices of hunger going down, Mr. Speaker, we have people like the Maasai community who rely on meat and milk. So it should not be perceived that when the prices of gorogoro of maize have gone down, which have not gone down, we have solved the problem of poverty and hunger, Mr. Speaker. So many people are crying, even the JSS students, Mr. Speaker. We've not gotten clear measures on how our children are going back to school with good number of teachers. At least the ratio should be well so that we have good participation of student and teacher. Yes, we are improving on the environment. What we saw yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the president has been talking of on how to mitigate and reduce expenditure. Mr. Speaker, we used to have scouts in our schools. I remember when I was in Kaplong Girls, we could plant trees, visit the sick in hospital. If this thing of planting trees can be taken back to our learners, they are taught, it is made a daily routine, we can save and have a better Kenya. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Doris. John Waweru Dagoretti, South.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you. And I'll start by congratulating the Parliament for organizing such a good afternoon for the State of the Nation address, with yourself on the chair, Mr. Speaker, being the main host. And I also want to congratulate His Excellency the President, not only for honoring his duty and doing what he's required to by the Constitution, but actually boldly and candidly venturing into the business of letting the country know where exactly we are. Mr. Speaker, the President was not shy to let us know that we are actually working in very difficult situations. Difficult situations at home and abroad. difficult situations that are exacerbated by the conditions of drought that has prevailed, Mr. Speaker, for several years ahead of these rains that we are experiencing today. Mr. Speaker, the situation globally is also affecting the economy of this country, with wars all over, supply chains interruptions, and the situation in which the situation with which this government came to office, and what they found, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with all this as the lay of the land, His Excellency the President said that he is not here to excuse any failure. He tackled the issues head on, Mr. Speaker. And one most amazing thing about the presentation of the State of the Nation is the style with which the President did it. His Excellency the President, ahead of his speech, took time to call numerous Kenyans across the nation to have a candid one-on-one discussion, Mr. Speaker, so that this speech was in essence what the people in the street would call a collabo between the President and his people, reporting what the situation on the ground is verbatim, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll take a few moments to just observe some of the sentiments that the President put across on a very critical sector, Mr. Speaker. The sector that is the digital economy. Mr. Speaker, the President took time to report on the project called the Digital Superhighway, Mr. Speaker, where the government is intending to roll out 100,000 kilometers of fiber, around 25,000 Wi-Fi hotspots around the country, around 1,450 digital innovation hubs, meaning that if this project takes off, in every single ward of this country, there shall be a digital innovation hub, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Doris Donya, in her contribution, did ask, where will the jobs come from, Mr. Speaker? And I ought to report here, Mr. Speaker, that with the few digital innovation hubs that have been installed around the country, the results are almost immediate, Mr. Speaker. You shall go to a digital hub that is in Nakuru, and you shall find that every month this digital hub is returning earnings of over 6 million Kenya shillings that is being earned by young Kenyans who are working around the clock, getting digital jobs from international companies, Mr. Speaker, earning in dollars. Mr. Speaker, you go to Rift Valley Institute, that is the same that is happening. You come to the Dagoretti South constituency, Kabete Technical, PC Kenyanjui. And Mr. Speaker, I'll take this opportunity to let members know that the digital innovation hubs in your constituency shall be an investment that shall pay dividends almost immediately, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the impact of the plans that are being laid out as enumerated by His Excellency the President, actually going to start earning or gathering fruits, Mr. Speaker, immediately, and he rolled out his ideas for the mid-term plans and the long-term plans. Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to also, Mr. Speaker, congratulate His Excellency the President on ending it on a high, giving hope to this country, Mr. Speaker. In short, the speech was short, punchy, and to the point, and it was very well loaded, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Kiaria. John Badi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was here on Thursday last week and I listened to the President carefully for 1 hour, 6 minutes. Mr. Speaker, the President sold us hope. And today I've also listened to the Majority Leader. He has sold us excuses. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to remind the two leaders that you cannot sell hope and excuses 14 months into your leadership. I want to remind them that this administration has taken 25% of the time that they were given by the people of Kenya, if at all the people of Kenya gave them, and they are remaining with only 75% of the time. And this is not the time to tell us that you have stabilized the economy when the facts and figures are pointing opposite direction. This is not the time to tell us that we are out of the hole when we know we are inside the hole and we are continuing to dig the hole even further. Mr. Speaker, where is the evidence that we have stabilized the economy? Number one, if you want to know that the economy is stabilized, you will have to check the interest rates. The interest rates, Mr. Speaker, on government premium instruments like treasury bills and bonds are in the region of 16 and 18%, signaling that our banks would definitely and certainly charge around 24%. That is not an economy that has been stabilized. Mr. Speaker, our shilling is on a free fall, we know it. And no matter how many excuses you give us about it, we deserve answers to that. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that we need to look at is inflation down. The answer is no. Actually, the only inflation that has gone down is food-led inflation. But non-food item inflation is biting this country and biting it hard. And starting with the prices of fuel products, yes, we know there are challenges in the global economy. There are challenges in the Middle East, which again you were told, Mr. Speaker, during the times of campaigns, but that time you were saying our prices of fuels had nothing to do with the problems that we are facing in Ukraine and the rest. I don't want to go that direction because we have talked about it a lot of times. But there are solutions to the price of fuel that we could use to reduce at least the price of fuel to under 200 shillings. And that is, this was not the right time to increase taxation on fuel products or petroleum products. It was done, Mr. Speaker, against the advice of all economists, leading economists in this country. Mr. Speaker, if I was the president, the first thing I would do would be to fire all my economic advisors and economic team and get fresh ones with fresh minds to advise me appropriately. The purchasing power, Mr. Speaker, of Kenyans has been eroded. And therefore you are telling Kenyans that they are better off. Where is that evidence? Ask Kenyans in the streets of Eldoret, streets of Kisumu, streets of Mombasa, streets of Nairobi. I don't know what percentage of Kenyans will tell you today that their life is better than it was a year ago. Most Kenyans will tell you that their lives are worse off. You cannot, when the economy is not doing well, you cannot increase or change taxation policy to the disadvantage of consumers. You cannot increase taxation when when people are struggling. And therefore, where we are, you have affected the purchasing power. When you affect the purchasing power by reducing people's disposable income, what is the net effect? The net effect is reduced demand for goods and services. What is therefore again the net effect of that? Low production. What is the net effect of that? Unemployment. And therefore, how are you helping the economy? Mr. Speaker, you cannot claim that you are fighting corruption when your own senior officers are using government resources to hire 8 choppers to a single fundraiser in the village. You are asking all your ministers, cabinet secretaries, on a day, Monday, you buy seedlings for 10,000 and you hire a chopper for 1 million to go and plant the trees. What kind of austerity measure is that? Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude by saying that Kenya is in a drip. If at all we were talking of Kenya being in ICU before the last election, it is now in a drip and we are just surviving by the grace of God. We are praying that somehow some miracle happens that Kenya survives. At this rate, with this administration.
Thank you, the Honorable Speaker, for this chance. I was also here on Thursday to listen to the President on behalf of the people of Muhaya. And Honorable Speaker, I listened with my third ear. And one thing, as a student of Eastern government and also a student of Ruto Vandaba on speech, I was happy that the President was very confident and he actually gave hope to the Kenyans. He was also very clear in his mind to say what was truthful, what could be done, and what could not be done. And that's what this country possibly needs, because we cannot afford to live a lie. And that is the general outlook of what I saw in the speech.
And what the Kenyans really need now is hope, because he was able to explain where we were, where we are headed to, and where we intend to go to. Honorable Speaker, there are three remarkable things I will highlight which was spoken on. Number one, the President was able to speak on the issue of education. And on education, he explained an array of reforms that he has brought to bear to try and improve the education system. And I must begin by thanking the President, because I've been in the education system for a long time, Honorable Speaker. And I know that employment of teachers has been and is still one of the biggest challenges that we do face. And that even in previously would only employ 5,000 teachers every year, and in 5 years would employ about 25,000. But it's remarkable to actually indicate that within his reign, in 1 year's time, he has been able to employ 55,000 teachers. And that's actually remarkable. I know they are not enough, but I must begin by congratulating for that, because I've been around and I know what happens. He forgot to indicate that also in terms of promotions, we have been having a lot of stagnation of the teachers. And I will be asking this Parliament, when the supplementary budget comes, to actually vie money for promotion of teachers. But he forgot to say that within the period in which he has operated, we have had a promotion of 14,000 teachers in the first phase, 6,000 teachers, and now 36,000 teachers who have been advertised. I would be glad to actually indicate and report to the President that of the 55,000 teachers who he employed, and we thank him for that, most of them were interns. And now they are the ones who are in the JSS, and they are now looking forward to becoming PNP, permanent and pensionable. Honorable Speaker, I was in Bomet over the weekend, and most of them are crying out that after the 1-year internship program, they should be confirmed as PNP. I'll be asking this House to support the President by actually vying money to make all those intern teachers who are in our JSS and other parts of the schools to become PNP. Honorable Speaker, the next thing I want to speak on, which came out very clearly in the President's address, was the issue of the economy. And here he was very, very firm and clear. And the issue of cost of living as an agenda in the bipartisan talks needs to be given more time, the way the mover of this motion did indicate. And it needs to have everybody look in each other's eye. I was very proud when I heard the leader of majority use that phrase, because back at home, that's my slogan. And in my language, it's called Menga Moni, look in my eyes. Because unless we deal with that very seriously, then we can easily lie to ourselves. That he was very clear to indicate that the borrowing had reached its maximum, and it was not possible for us to borrow anymore. And you are aware as a House that even we had been downgraded in terms of our ability to borrow in the grading system of borrowing around the world. And now it's very important that we tighten our belts and actually live within our means. And if we continued with the borrowing, we shall actually collapse. He was also very bold to indicate that for the first time now, we want to face the challenge that we have always feared for the longest time, and that is the Eurobond. That we want to tackle it so that it may give confidence to the international markets to actually invest in us, because most of what the countries are doing is to default. And the repercussions of defaulting are usually very severe, and they don't last 1 month, neither 1 year. They last an array of years because you lose the confidence in your currency, and it's usually very terrible. So in the interest of time, I think I'll have to stop there. I'm unable to speak on agriculture, which I think is the most important thing, because productivity must be encouraged and not consumption. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Zamzam Chimba.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi nikiweza kuchangia katika hotuba aliyotoa Rais hivi karibuni. Mheshimiwa Spika, najua hali ziko ngumu sana katika taifa yetu, lakini ningependa kumwelezea Mheshimiwa Rais kuwa wale wanaokushauri wawe wako na uwazi na wewe. Si vizuri hapa tukiona wabunge wanampigia upatu wakati ambapo wanajua kuna matatizo. Mheshimiwa Spika, kiongozi mzuri ni yule anapenda kuambiwa hapa kuna shida, hapa uko sawa. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, nimeona Rais kweli anajaribu kujibidisha, ile kuna masala ambayo hakuweza kuzungumzia, kwa sababu kiongozi mwema huzungumza yale matatizo alionayo na yale mazuri alofanya. Hatukuweza kuona hilo katika hotuba ya rais. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, hotuba ya rais pia haikuweza kushika hali tata, yani hisia za wananchi zilivyo katika taifa hii. Mheshimiwa Spika, wananchi wanahangaika na njaa, taksi ziko juu, ushuru unapanda kila kukicha. Tumeona zingine katika vitambulisho, tumeona chakula kimepanda juu. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hiyo wananchi walikuwa wanasubiri kusikia atashika masala gani yanayogusa mwananchi wa kawaida wa kule chini. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Spika, nikizingatia kuwa mafuta ama fuel pia imepanda juu, na ukiangalia stima pia imekuwa katika hali tata katika nyumba za Wakenya wengi. Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Rais pia aliweza kukwepa swala hili kulizungumzia, na mimi nataka kumwelezea kuwa rais ndio unajaribu, lakini nafikiri unawashauri ambao hawakushauri vizuri. Mheshimiwa Spika, inakuwa aibu kwa kiongozi wa taifa kuweza kutangaza kuwa sasa mvua ya El Nino haitokuwepo, kisha siweze kuwa na mipango ya kukabili El Nino, alafu sasa tuanze kuona mvua inanyesha. Hii sio kuwa ni hoja ya rais mwenyewe, aliweza kuwa advice kuwa hii haitokuwa. Na ndio maana nasema huenda yeye ana nia nzuri na Wakenya, lakini wale waliomzingira wanaompa advice hawamuelezei vizuri. Na ndio maana mimi nataka niwaelezee wabunge wenzangu, msiwe watu wa kupiga ngoma tu, mpiga ngoma mkicheza hamjui mziki waenda vipi. Ni lazima hapa, hili ni bunge la uwazi, kuelezana ukweli. Tuweze kumwambia rais, hapa umefanya, hapa kumepunguka, hapa jibidishe. Huo ndo mjadala ambao unafaa unaendelea katika bunge hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini tukiwa watu wa kusema kuwa tuwakupongeza wakati ambapo kule nje mambo si sawa, hata yeye mwenyewe anapokaa anajua kweli hawa wabunge wangu hawanipendi. Msifikiri kuwa rais hana akili, ana akili zake na anajua na anaangalia. Anatamani hata siku moja mbunge ambaye yuko upande wake aweze kumwelezea ukweli kuwa Mheshimiwa Rais, hapa airport kuna shida iko hivi. Mheshimiwa Rais, wananchi wanalia mafuta ya mapanda, hawana chakula. Tunaweza tukafanya namna gani? Na kiongozi mzuri ni yule ambaye kama hali ziko hali mbaya katika taifa, Mheshimiwa Spika, anaangalia, asifanye mambo 1000 kwa wakati mmoja. Achague jambo moja ambalo linaweza kugusa mwananchi likainua uchumi, aweze kufocus na jambo moja, aweze kulitenda kwa ubora zaidi, kisha mengine yatafuatia polepole. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, ukimwangalia rais, amezingirwa barabara, amezingirwa miundo msingi, amezingirwa agriculture, sijui ataka kufanya mambo 50 kwa wakati mmoja, wakati ambapo uchumi hauko sawa. Na ndio maana mimi kama mama Mombasa sio kuwa nachukia, hapana. Nampenda tena sana, lakini nitakuwa mwazi kwake kusema kuwa hali si sawa kule mashinani, na wala asiwasikize hawa wabunge wanaompigia kengele na ngoma. Asikize huku sisi tunamuelezea mambo halisi yaliyoko kwenye kule mazingara ya wananchi kule chini. Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi mpaka wakati huu tumekubali huyu ndio rais, na sisi tunataka kusonga mbele kama Wakenya kwa sauti moja. Na vile tumekubali, twasema asidanganywe hapa na hawa wabunge kumpigia ngoma, ni kuzuri, tunakusifu, hapana. Kama mama Mombasa, mimi nakwambia rais, hata hawa walimu 59,000 ambao umeajiri, nataka kukwambia ukweli kuwa Mombasa County tulipata walimu 6 peke yake kwa walimu 56,000. Katika hizi za wifi 25,000, mimi nataka kumwelezea rais, Mombasa imekuja 2 peke yake. Kwa hiyo kama anapenda ugatuzi kama alivyosema, pengine wale wanaomshauri hawamwambii vizuri, na mimi kama mama Mombasa County napenda kumwambia kuwa ajibidishe, akazane, lakini asidanganywe na hawa waheshimiwa wengine. Asante sana.
Mama, what is your point of order, KJ?
Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa utueleze kama mjumbe huyu wa Mombasa amekiuka kanuni za kudumu hapa bungeni kwa kuweza kuwapotosha wabunge, kueleza kwamba kunavyo vituo ambavyo vimebuniwa vya kidijitali, akijua vema kwamba wewe mwenyewe uliweza kutuita mkutano hapa wa Kamkunji na tukaweza kujadili masuala haya ya vituo hivi, kwamba ni majukumu ya wajumbe kuweza kushirikiana pamoja na serikali kuu kubuni hivi vituo ambavyo ni vituo vya kidijitali. Na pia walimu hawa ambao walikuwa wanaajiriwa, Mheshimiwa Spika, nadhani kwamba huyu mjumbe anatupotosha kutuambia kwamba kutokana na wale walimu 56,000 ambao waliajiriwa, ati kwamba ni 6 peke yake ambao wameajiriwa katika kaunti nzima ya Mombasa. Mheshimiwa Spika, je, huyu mjumbe anatupotosha, na je, amekiuka hizi kanuni zetu za kudumu?
Hayo maoni na namba ni zake. And in future, Mama Zamzam, when your colleague is on his feet on a point of order, you take your seat. Maliza on 30 seconds.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Nataka nimwelezee mbunge mwenzangu kuwa mimi ndio mama Mombasa na nachunguza na angalia. Na hapa tulikuwa na yule waziri kweli. Lakini wewe unajua kama aliweza kuzundiwa sehemu 2 ya kuweza kuweka wifi? Ikiwa unaweza kupinga hapa, mimi nakwambia usilolijua ni usiku wa giza, angalia ya kwako ni angalia kwangu. Kule kwetu walimu walikuwa ni wachache sana kuzingatia na namba ambazo zimetolewa 56,000. Kwa hiyo tuweze kuheshimiana, zungumza Dagoretti sijui ni wapi, mimi niachie ya Mombasa. Napenda rais na namuombea Mungu aweze kukazana, afanye kazi kwa bidii lakini asisikize
Thank you, Mama Mombasa. Geoffrey Ruku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is important, Mr. Speaker, I feel that I was not in the House, but I followed the address online from the time the President came in to the last sentence. And Mr. Speaker, I write to support all the sentiment and raised by the end of state and the end of government, and to congratulate him for a very job well done for the past 1 year. Mr. President, in his speech, in his national address, he put it clearly that, Mr. Speaker, the appointment of judges, which the 6 judges came in handy to support the judiciary, to support the judicial the justice administration system of our country. And not only that, Mr. Speaker, the allocation of 3 billion Kenya shilling to judiciary, that is indeed a clear indication that the President supports the justice administration system of this country, which has not been faring very well for a number of years. Mr. Speaker, he also highlighted in his speech address that the Inspector General, setting Inspector General as accounting officer to ensure that the National Police Service is well managed, and at the same time appointing Justice David Maraga to a task force, to lead a task force, Mr. Speaker, to review the terms and conditions of our women and men in uniform. We have been having challenges in this country as far as the police, National Police Service is concerned, and to ensure the people of Kenya enjoy security, protection of life and property. This is something which the President did the very first days in his office, in office as head of state and head of government. Mr. Speaker, in agricultural production and livestock value chain addition, so that the cost of living can come down. A lot of investment which has been done by the government, led by the President, at the moment is yielding fruit. We have seen the fertilizers coming from 7,000 to 2,500 per bag, Mr. Speaker. And we are witnessing huge harvest in different parts of this country at the moment. The reduction of wasteful expenditure to ensure that the government is is controlling the expenditure. You remember in a speech and what the President has done to ensure no government officer can spend more than 7 days outside this country, and any unnecessary expenditure in our offices, in public service offices, has been cut down, Mr. Speaker. An exemplary performance which has been shown by ASRA's fund with the disbursement of huge amount of money to a tune of that the 6.6 billion, Mr. Speaker, and a saving of 2.3 billion, Mr. Speaker. All this is achievement within 1 year, and it has been done by the visionary end of state. Mr. Speaker, we witnessed the employment of almost 60,000 teachers and 8,000 primary school teachers for the junior secondary schools. This has been done by a committed president. And in his speech, he clearly outlined that, and it is known to each and every person within the Republic of Kenya. This is something which has never been done in the past, and it can only be done through commitment, passion, and diligence in service to the people. Mr. Speaker, the passing of a universal health bill, as well as the primary health act, Mr. Speaker, and the Facility Improvement Financing Act, which the government, led by His Excellency the President, has championed to ensure there is enhancement of health care.
Your time is up. James Nyikal. So that you don't appear to be unfairly truncated when you are contributing, you look at the clerk, there's the amber light that warns you. When the amber comes on, you have 1 minute. When the red comes on, you are switched off. James Nyikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to comment on the President's speech, which is in line with our constitutional requirement, Article 132, to indicate the measures and taken and the progress made in achieving the principles that guide us from Article 10. Mr. Speaker, my summary of this really is, once again, we are the list of policies, promises that are to be done. And let me say, a fair amount of report on process indicators, which means what needs to be done and where we have reached. But actually, it did bring us to what has actually done. In my view, at these times, what we expect, Mr. Speaker, we expect results that affect our daily lives, not good plans, not processes that have been put in place. For example, Mr. Speaker, we will not tire of talking of the cost of living. We keep saying that actually we cannot go into subsidy, but if you have a crisis in your hands, you first of all deal with the crisis before you go for long-term measures. We keep saying, for example, that the cost of fuel cannot be touched because it is a consumption subsidy. I'll never be convinced, Mr. Speaker, nobody can, that a subsidy in cost of fuel is consumption. There is no single mover of economy like fuel. So in my view, subsidy on fuel may be a better production subsidy than even fertilizer, which we all agree is actually a production subsidy. And when we say the cost of fuel is a problem that arising from other events in the world, why are there differences within the region? As Mr. Speaker, the cost of fuel has about 5 levies and a heavy VAT tax on it. Those are things that we can handle. So I was expecting that at least that one we will take care of. Mr. Speaker, when we talk of in the area of education, we had good indications, primary education, funding primary, university educations, but up to now, really, we are just starting to see the fees being paid, and there are still a lot of students who are in universities and their fees have yet to be paid. When we talk of universal health coverage, we have changed laws. Changing laws is not the same as actually getting results. And I'm worried, Mr. Speaker, even the laws we have changed have opened ourselves to a lot of activity from the private sector. We literally may hand over the processes to the private sector. I'm not so sure we'll get much there. Mr. Speaker, when we are talking of even social protection, we have changed the structure. A member mentioned NSSF. I don't know whether we are aware here that in our new arrangement, there are actually 2 tiers of NSSF payment which are being made by employees, where tier 1, which is a small proportion, actually is what NSSF is going to manage, while tier 2, which is a bigger proportion, is actually going to the private sector. So, Mr. Speaker, I remain worried because we are talking more processes, more policies, but we are not getting to the point of saying this is what we have achieved, is affecting your life today. We talk of 11 landing beaches that have actually, in Kisumu County alone, there are 35 landing beaches. What is 11 for the whole country? That is a drop in the ocean. When we are talking about the justice system, what we are saying, we have employed judges. You can employ people, you can put money, but if the governance structures are not working, you still will not get results. So what we are looking for is results. When we are talking of security, we talk of funding the police. I think those are good things, but we must move away from thinking that policies, funding will eventually turn into actual delivery of what people need if we do not pay attention to the issues of governance that will move these things to allocating money.
Your time is up. Honorable Ruku, I gave you a chance to speak. You finished and logged in again. That is not right. You are still stuck at the top of the screen. Then there's something wrong, clerk. The next goes to member for, it's called Moham, member for Nyali, is it? Yes.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Ningelipenda kuzungumzia hotuba ya Rais. Yale ambayo alisema yalikuwa mambo ya wazi na aligonga ndipo. Mheshimiwa Spika, ninaposikiza waheshimiwa wenzangu wakizungumza jinsi hali ya maisha ilivyo, ninashangaa sana kwa sababu hawa wanaotuzungumza na kutuzungumzia na kutueleza haya mambo ni wale ambao walitutia katika shimo la matatizo katika taifa hili. Hawa ndio walioweza katika uongozi wao, waliweza kupora mali ya wananchi na kupelekwa katika mataifa ya nje, waliweza kutumia pesa ya wananchi vibaya na kufanya kampeni zisizo na kichwa wala mguu za BBI, na leo hawa ndio wanakaa mbele yetu na kutuambia vile ambavyo taifa hili litaendeshwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, deni ya Kenya haiwezi lipwa na mtu mwingine. Deni ya Kenya italipwa na sisi wa Kenya. Kenya ni nchi huru, nchi ambayo inajifaa kujitegemea na kuzalisha mapato yake, ajira na mambo mengine mengi, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo kile ambacho Rais wa Jamhuri amefanya ni kuhakikisha ya kwamba minyororo, mitego iliyokuwa ikiwekwa hapo awali ya sisi kila mara kuomba na kutegemea mataifa ya nje yameisha. Na wakati ambapo unataka kulipa haya madeni, ni lazima utafute njia mbadala ya kulipa haya madeni. Na njia ni sisi wenyewe tuweze kujikomboa. Nimesikia mheshimiwa mmoja akisema ya kwamba ati rais anatoa ahadi mingi sana. Achague jambo moja, amalize moja. Hata wewe mheshimiwa kwako nyumbani huli sima kila siku. Leo ni sima, kesho ni chapati, kesho ni pilau. Kwa hivyo muacheni rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya azunguke, aende, atafute. Nyinyi hata wa leo munapiga kelele kwa sababu ya upanzi wa miti. Tusipopanda miti muko na maneno. Tukipanda munaanza kusema watu wameenda kupanda. Jambo ambalo ni jambo la Mheshimiwa Speaker.
Member for hold Moha's time. Yes, Fatuma, what's the problem?
Mheshimiwa Speaker, I would like to, honorable member, to explain to us who exactly is he talking to, because he keeps on pointing at the three of us and saying hawa ndio walichukua deni, hawa wanapiga kelele mti ukipandwa. Tungeomba utuambie kamili unamzungumzia nani, na kama una habari, mimi huu ni mwaka wangu wa kwanza kwa kwenye bunge hili, sina deni la mtu.
Order, Fatuma, you are out of order. There are people like Italians who speak figuratively with their hands. The fact that you are in the direction that he's facing doesn't mean he's talking about you. Go on, Mohammed.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Nadhani wakiambiwa ukweli wanatafuta vijisababu visivyo na kichwa wala mguu. Nikisema hawa ni nyinyi ambao mulikuwa katika serikali iliyokuwa hapo awali, nyinyi ambao mulienda mkadanganya wananchi na kuwaambia mambo ya porojo ilhali mulikuwa mkipora mali yao. Kwanza nyinyi mnafaa murudi kwa wananchi, muwaombe msamaha, museme nyinyi ndio mmefanya makosa kwa kuweza kupora na kufuja mali ya Wakenya na kutuletea haya matatizo. Mheshimiwa Spika, hawa walikuja na kifua wakisema ya kwamba tutafanya mambo mengine kwa lazima, na leo mnakaa mbele yetu bila aibu, mnataka kutuambia vile ambavyo taifa hili litaendezwa. Hata hayati Emilio Mwai Kibaki alichukua miaka 2 kujenga nchi. Wewe pia kama mbunge ulipochaguliwa huwezi fanya miujiza na kipindi cha miaka 1. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, yale ambayo rais alizungumzia yalikuwa ukweli bayana. Alizungumzia masuala ya elimu, akazungumzia masuala ya ukulima, akazungumzia pia masuala ya deni ya Eurobond. Na dawa ya deni ni kulipa. Na usidanganywe na mtu yoyote. Sisi wa Kenya ndio tutalipa hiyo deni, sisi wa Kenya ndio tutasukuma hii gari mpaka tufike mahala ambapo patakuwa sawa kwa kila Mkenya. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Member for Kapchai.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this time to speak on the speech of the President. So, Speaker, when I listened carefully, the speech of the President, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, the President is an economic tailor. He's an economic tailor, Mr. Speaker. When you take your cloth to your tailor, Mr. Speaker, and he takes your measurement and tells you come after 2 weeks to pick your suit, Mr. Speaker. Don't sit around and see how he tears and takes the scissors to cut the clothes, Mr. Speaker. You might be worried. This President, Mr. Speaker, as an economic tailor, he has cut in the structures of this government. It's important, Mr. Speaker, to know, and to know very well, that the President, Mr. Speaker, brought in the subsidy of fertilizer. Fertilizer, Mr. Speaker, brought about the issue of food in this country. As we talk today, Mr. Speaker, most farms, we are doing the second season of the crop. Under 2,500 fertilizer of 50 kilos. Mr. Speaker, it has been made downer. Even this fertilizer has been moved from cereal headquarters, Mr. Speaker, to the sub-count levels to give farmers a chance, Mr. Speaker. We're only asking them, Mr. Speaker, that they increase the number so that most farmers get to ease. When we get a lot of food, Mr. Speaker. And I was wondering, Mr. Speaker, when I heard Honorable Bombadi, he said that he is not seeing the signs of development in this country. Mr. Speaker, when we harvest well and we eat enough food, like in his constituents, Mr. Speaker, sufurias are now busy. You cannot, if sufurias are busy, Mr. Speaker, they have a lot of food. You can't find them on your head. And that is the reason why we are saying, Mr. Speaker, we start with food. It's not a fact, Mr. Speaker. It depends also with the school you went through. We have something called the Kepner and Trocker principle of assessing the degree of danger. And then you start from where? In your house, Mr. Speaker. If today a dog comes to bite your leg, and 2, your vehicle starts rolling downwards because you left it on a free gear, and at the same time your house catches fire, and inside your house is a child who is sleeping. It's upon you, Mr. Speaker, to start making the difference. It's you to make a decision. What do you start with? That's called the Kepner and Trocker principle of the degree of danger. You will first start with the house that is burning. Take out the child as the dog bites your leg because you can go to see the doctor. So, Speaker, the President has chosen on what to start with, and the first is food. If we stabilize the food factor, so Speaker, Madam Speaker, this country is getting somewhere. 2, Madam Speaker, infrastructure to the sensitive areas of this country. We need better roads, Mr. Speaker, to go inside to get where food is produced, agro-based zones, where we can get fresh milk from the farms straight and quickly, 2 hours, packed to static time to reach the centers and cooling centers. That's what we need, Mr. Speaker, in this country. We need roads that can feed in to get some of these perishable foods from inner parts of this country to come to the markets. That is what the president is focusing on. Mr. Speaker, I want also to say something, that the national dialogue, that due to the magnanimity of the president, due to his magnanimity, Madam Speaker, he chose that we come together and talk. We expect fruits from this dialogue. We also want to know, Mr. Speaker, that we are not doing things at futility. When it will come to this house, Madam Speaker, let us work on it and see how better we can make of it. Madam Speaker, I cannot finish if I cannot mention that the President and the First Lady are a praying family. A praying family, it makes a praying nation. And if we pray together, Mr. Speaker, and we work hard, Madam Speaker, this Kenya is getting somewhere. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, the Honorable Member for Kilifi South, Honorable Ken Chonga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I stand to express the feelings and the wishes of many Kenyans as far as this speech is concerned. And Madam Speaker, let me take a cue from Honorable Zamzam when she said that when we debate some of these speeches, we need to understand that we are here for the interest of the Kenyans. And honestly, the way we present our debates will impress on Kenyans on what they feel about it. When we stand in front of this chamber and we debate out of our thorax and mouth the way Honorable Muhammad Ali was doing, honestly, it creates no value. We come here to debate issues. We are not here at war. Madam Speaker, let me say that the speech of the President, to many, it was a very, very big disappointment. It was a disappointment because let us first of all take cue of when, during the time when we were campaigning, the promises that the Mwananchi was promised by this government. It was the expectation of every mamamboga, every boda, every hustler that life was going to be better than the way it is today. And if there's anything that Mwananchi expected, that is what he wanted to read and understand from the speech of the President. Madam Speaker, let me tell you where the rain started beating us. The rain started beating us by passing out a punitive finance bill in this parliament. We talked about it, we discussed it, we could see the weaknesses of some of the elements that were in that bill, but there was nobody to hear because the numbers were less. The finance bill is the biggest cause of the cost of living today. Madam Speaker, the other day, on the 8th of November, members of parliament from the government side were at State House. And they expressed openly that they have become less popular because of the cost of living. This is something is in parliament domain. And I think the president, what he said was, you do not need to be popular. Indeed, if they feel they're unpopular and they feeling what the Mwananchi is feeling on the ground. Madam Speaker, I was keenly listening to the leader of majority here and his deputy, and the kind of lies that they were making to Kenyans. One of the causes why the cost of living is not going to go up any soon is the cost of fuel in this country. Madam Speaker, you and me know very well that Kenya went into an arrangement of government to government with the government of Saudi Arabia. Look at the players in this arrangement, first of all. If there is nothing that I can call a scam, this is the biggest scam, Madam Speaker. They are telling us that the cost of fuel is going up because of the war in Ukraine and the Hamas. How come the cost of fuel is going down in Tanzania, in Rwanda, in Uganda, What explanation can the president make out of that? It is in public domain that the companies who were given the tender to be bringing fuel tied their hands in such a manner that when the cost of fuel is going down, they cannot negotiate these terms. And you know very well, for as long as the cost of fuel will remain high, everything in Kenya will remain high. Madam Speaker.
What's your point of order, Honorable KJ?
Madam Speaker, as emotive and as misinformed as the Honorable Chonga might be, is it in order for him to say that we are speaking lies here or the president is speaking lies? To the best of my knowledge, Madam Speaker, this is very unparliamentary language that goes against even our standing orders, Madam Speaker. So I think it is in order that the honorable member withdraws that statement on the issue of lies. It is unparliamentary language. He needs to withdraw and apologize, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Chonga, if you make a allegation.
Madam Speaker, if you heard me very well, there is nothing that I called a lie. Maybe I should use a different language for KJ to understand what I'm talking about.
What did you say exactly?
What I'm saying, Madam Speaker, is as the government or as the leader of majority has put it here, that the cost of fuel in Kenya is going up just because there is war between Israel and Hamas. Why couldn't he go a step further and explain to the parliament why the cost of fuel in Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda is going down? Simple. And if you did not understand it, for the
Honorable Chonga, it is not your place to decide what a member says. You say your view and let the member say their view.
Thank you. I stand guided, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I know my time is up. But I just want to make this submission, and if you'll allow me, because KJ has taken almost 1 minute of mine, I want us to come to the realization that the mwananchi is actually suffering. As much as we are fixing the agriculture sector and many other sectors, we need to know how the cost of living can come down. And if we play around with this matter, I refer back to what Pastor Mackenzie said, Kitawaramba. This government is in place because of the people who put this government in place where it is. It is the same people who are complaining about how life has become so unbearable.
Conclude, Honorable Member. I'll give you an extra minute.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
So conclude.
I'm concluding. Madam Speaker, with that realization that we are where we are because of the promises that we gave to the Mwananchi, be you on the opposition or on the government side, the feeling of the people on the ground is the same. Langu mimi Kiswahili nataka kusema, tusingoje kiwarambe. If we insist that everything is correct and yet everything is going wrong, then kuramba tutarambwa. Asante, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Narok West, Honorable Gabriel Tongoy. What is your point of order, Leader of Majority?
Honorable Speaker, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I came running from the office. So if I pant, Honorable Speaker, it's because I came running. You know, I'm a stickler to the rules and procedures of the House. And I was listening as the Honorable Ken Chonga made his contribution and challenged on a point of order by the Honorable KJ. He asserted that he had not used the term lies. Honorable Speaker, we must be a house that adheres to our own rules and procedures, because the Honorable Ken Chonga asserted that the kind of lies being said to us by the Leader of Majority and his deputy. And Honorable Speaker, there is something called statement of fact. Honorable Ken Chonga has been in this house long enough to know our rules. Therefore, he cannot, on the basis of a point of order raised by Honorable KJ, assert that he did not use the term lies. he actually stated that the kind of lies being told to us, and you know, we were not speaking to Ken Chonga, we were speaking to the country, and we were not telling lies. That language is unparliamentary. We must not allow the Honorable Ken Chonga to get away with it. Because we are degrading the dignity of this House by allowing members to utter careless statements without substantiating, without giving facts. Give us a statement of fact. What is it that the leader of majority said or his deputy said that was untrue? Honorable members do not tell lies. The honorable member for Kilifi North cannot be telling lies.
You had
He's
your
an honorable member of parliament.
Chonga, let him finish prosecuting.
Honorable Speaker, I want to ask Honorable Speaker if the Honorable Ken Chonga will not apologize and withdraw that term, Honorable Speaker. I would want to move, Honorable Speaker, on standing order number 107, 108, that I ask you if the Honorable Ken Chonga does not apologize and withdraw, that you find him to be grossly disorderly, and I shall be moving to name him Honorable Speaker, because we must restore the dignity of this House, Honorable Speaker. As I contributed, I asked all of us to be patriotic enough and to be leaders. There are things you can say in funerals, there are things you can say in rallies, but you cannot say in such an honorable House, Honorable Speaker. And I know it is exciting for those who are who are politicians and not leaders to want to say things that will excite the masses, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if you can also protect me from the member for Busia, and I keep teaching our Honorable Speaker, allow me to keep guiding the Honorable member for Busia. When you find what I'm saying is unpalatable, you went to school to be able to stand in your position, articulate your issues, don't shout from your seat. You can shout from markets in Busia, but not in this House. Honorable Speaker, this House we articulate, we debate. It is a debating chamber, not a shouting chamber. I know it's common to shout in some places in Busia, but not in this House. Honorable Speaker, I would beg that you do require Honorable Chonga to withdraw and apologize, failure to which, Honorable Speaker, we shall be moving to name him.
Honorable Chonga, I have just been able to substantiate from the confirm from the clerk that you did in fact say that the kind of lies by the leader of majority and the deputy, and went on to allege. I've checked that with them. So I'll just bring to your attention standing order number 91, responsibility for statement of fact. The member shall be responsible for the accuracy of any facts which they are alleged to be true and may be required to substantiate. Again, when you are informed that you had made those remarks, you said that it was not in fact true. And now it's been confirmed by the Hansard that it was. And then, and if you do not convince me, then I will move to standing order number 107 and finding you liable for disorderly conduct. I'll give you a minute to respond to that.
Madam Speaker, I regret to say that I think I was not understood well. The statement that was made by the leader of majority and his deputy is that by virtue of the war in Israel and the Hamas, the prices...
Chonga, I was giving you an opportunity either to apologize, withdraw the remarks, then you can proceed. But you're making it worse by restating again. Are you disputing what is on the Hansard? Yes or no, Honorable Chonga?
I cannot dispute what is on the Hansard, okay. But I'll stand by my word.
Chonga, then we will let you sit down. You can leave the House and confirm and then come back.
Okay, Madam Speaker.
And then we can decide your fate in another 10 minutes when you have confirmed. Proceed. No, you are disorderly. Honorable Chonga, I have not given you the mic. Hold on. Honorable Chonga, would you like... Honorable Chonga. Honorable Chonga. Honorable Chonga, you did not have the mic and you proceeded to speak. Then you will just be held that you keep away from the House for the next 2 sittings. Let us proceed. The Honorable
I think it was
member for Nakuru. It was the honorable member for Narok
West.
West. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank you for giving
He
me
has
this
not begun, then
opportunity
you can make your point of order. Let him make.
to contribute to the President's speech. Madam Speaker, I was in this House when the President was addressing to the nation, and in fact seated where I'm seated today. And I had the opportunity of not just be listening to him, but even looking and reading his body language. And I was so convinced that the President really was aspiring hope to Kenyans. And the President really gave a history and a journey that Kenya has walked since he took over in less than a year, in almost a year ago. Madam Speaker, he managed to address several issues so important to Kenyans, ranging from matters economy and the trajectory of Kenya's economy, of course, my issues of food security, matters to do with the security, the housing, UHC, and many others. And I want to mention a few, and of course, starting on matters national security. And the President started by outlining what he committed to Kenyans, and that giving the national police the financial autonomy to enable them execute their mandate in serving Kenyans and ensuring that Kenya is safe. And the President lived true to his promise to Kenyans that in Presidential Executive number 1, the President gave the police the financial autonomy, and I can confirm that as the chair of that committee, Madam Speaker. It is true that Kenya, we have been having security challenges ranging from cattle rustling, the terrorism, especially the issue of banditry in North Rift and Northeastern and actually some part of the country. And our very disciplined and committed and very competent security forces has continuously been executing their mandate to ensure that Kenya is safe. And it's just good to mention, Madam Speaker, that in the endeavor to make sure that our police officers and our security forces are well equipped to execute their mandate, the modernization program that the President has been promising to Kenyans is on course to ensure that our security forces are well equipped to address the security challenges. We can all confirm, Madam Speaker, that the issue of cattle rustling and banditry in North Rift has really significantly reduced. And even members in this House from that region can confirm the same. Of course, we have still a few challenges. They are not there, but we are really up to the task. You also mentioned about the issue of NYS, that we are going to double the intake and ensure that the 80% of the NYS are going to be taken during the future recruitment into our security forces, being the police or the KDF. Madam Speaker, on the issue of international obligation, we are on the right track as a country. It is true, we are proud to be Kenyans. Kenya has been known and they have really cemented their position in the global arena, especially in matters peace. We are currently participating in several countries, helping those countries stabilizing the peace. And even it is in this that I don't want to preempt, but we know, of course, the issue of our anticipated deployment of our forces to Haiti to help that country to maintain their peace. Madam Speaker, on the issue of food security, the President was able to really put it in clear terms what the country, what the Kenya Kwanza has managed to do, starting from subsidy on fertilizers, which has enabled the produce, the food, which has really enabled, Madam Speaker, the harvest to double in less than a year. You have talked about issues to do with the provision, reducing the post-harvest by provision of the dryers, And I'm proud they talked about the first consignment is just on, it will be in the country in a short, maybe in a week or two. Madam Speaker, on the issues of UHC, we know that this House passed a bill to include the issue of Health Facility Improvement Fund, which will be able to ring-fence the funds that generally generated by health facilities to enable them, make sure that the funds are used to improve the facilities, and of course, continue to make sure that our health facilities give the services, needed much services to Kenyans. And it is going to be a game changer, Madam Speaker. We know in communities where we come from, what really has continuously affected communities, at times even causing them to lose, even sell their property to include land, is the very high bills from the hospitals because of lack of cover, insurance cover. It's going to be a thing of the past once this program is rolled. And it is a big achievement, and it is a commitment and a promise that the President has really lived up to. Madam Speaker, on the issue of housing, and of course here seated right on my right hand is the chair, we had really made a progress, a very big progress on the same. There are a lot of housing units coming all over the country, and I'm sure it is in a due course, Kenyans are going to live in dignified manner. Madam Speaker, the other issue that I want really to talk about is the issue of the economy. And more importantly, the issue of the Eurobond, a debt that has continuously been a concern to Kenyans. It's true, as been reported by a majority and members who have spoken ahead of us, we were in a hole. When the Kenya Kwanza government took over, we know the kind of burden, the kind of debts that are really on our shoulders. And we're so proud because the President had committed and promised the country that we are going to live to the obligation and we are going to be able to be in a position to clear the debt, the 300 billion that is going to be due in due course. And it's something that, of course, it has been a concern to the country. And of course, we know the challenges that are there, including, of course, the issue of the fluctuation of the shilling against the dollar, the major currencies. We know, of course, the issue members have been talking about, the cost of living, the issue of the cost of petroleum product. But, Madam Speaker, it's good to note, and members should be very honest, it's an issue that is beyond Kenya as a country. It's a global challenge, it's a global problem. But the President is doing his best, the Kenya Kwanza government is doing their best to cushion Kenyans. Subsidy is never, Madam Speaker, a solution to it. And I think the President made it very clear. The right thing to do is to do subsidy to the production, not consumption. And that is exactly what they're doing. We had a government to government, Madam Speaker, is a mechanism and a means of trying to lower the cost of petroleum product. And if the President did not take the intervention, I'm sure we could be talking of a different story now. Madam Speaker, of importance, also the President talked about our continuous role to honor our international obligation as a country, and he went further to illustrate the several international security missions that Kenya forces are undertaking currently and even in the past. And it's something we are proud as Kenyan to, Madam Speaker, to mention that as a country, we had continuously making Kenya proud. So, Madam Speaker, to me, I think the President was able really to, not really mincing his own word, he shared a picture of a promising future. He managed to share a picture of a right trajectory, a country which is on the right path to prosperity. The challenges are going to be there, but we will surmount, Madam Speaker. We have the right captain steering the ship, and we are going we are going in the right direction, Madam Speaker. So I want to say that the President managed really to talk on matters that affected Kenya on the issue, of course, of the Wezo Asla Fund. He really mentioned we were so surprised that he had a connection to even the Asla in the village. There down, the tuk-tuk rider, who talked in their own words on how the Asla Fund had managed to transform their lives. So, Madam Speaker, we have a president, we have a captain, and we are proud to be Kenyan. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. And before I call the next, the Honorable Esther Passaris, member for Nairobi County, someone just asked, what did Honorable Ken Chonga do? For the avoidance of doubt, I asked him to leave under Standing Order 107A, which states that a member commits an act of gross disorderly conduct if the member defies a ruling or direction of the Speaker, declines to explain or retract use of unparliamentary words, and declines to offer apology despite being ordered to do so. And you saw that I severally requested Honorable Chonga to do so, and then demonstrates or makes disruptive utterances against, despite being asked not to do so. And you saw that even without the mic, he continued. So it's on that basis, because the standing order is quite clear, that the Speaker may call upon the member whose conduct is grossly disorderly to withdraw immediately from the presence of the Assembly for a minimum of 5 days and a maximum of 28 days. So he has to keep away from the presence of Parliament for 2 days. 5 days. Just wait. Just trying to quote that. I said 2 days. Just wait. Minimum of 5 days. Yes. Actually, it's a minimum of 5 days. So unfortunately, he has a minimum of 5 days. Let us proceed. The Honorable Member for Nairobi County. Member has not even spoken, Honorable Passaris. What is the point of order about? Because no one has spoken yet. Proceed, Honorable Passaris. No one has spoken yet. You can't have a point of order over nothing. Proceed.
Thank you,
Honorable
Madam.
Kibagendi,
Sorry.
I was referring to a decision I'd already made, so it's not a new matter. Proceed, Honorable Passaris.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I am standing here. Sorry for the distraction. Can you please stop shouting point of order? I want to contribute. Yeah, but I haven't even spoken. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the State of the Nation address by His Excellency President. Madam Speaker, I need some protection here because I keep speaking and he keeps saying point of order, so I really don't know what I'm supposed to do. Okay, so I want to contribute to the motion.
Honorable Passaris, ignore him and address
Madam Speaker, I suffer from OCD, and the problem is he's right next to me, so he's really distracting me. Please, can you wait until I finish and then...
Don't address him, address the chair.
Through the chair. Through the chair. Okay, Madam Speaker.
You're losing your time.
Madam Speaker, I take this opportunity to speak to the State of the Nation address by His Excellency President William Ruto. And I have to say that the first thing that caught my attention is the respect that the President gave to the august House by calling us distinguished members, democratically elected. And also, I have to take note of the fact that every time we have a function where the President is, he gives utmost respect to elected members, which I never saw in my last tenure in Parliament. So I have to commend him for that. That puts us in a relationship where we can actually respect each other and work together. The President talked many times, mentioned the word national values in his speech, And I think we need to really have the national values of our country defined, because that is something that once we understand what our national values are, then as citizens and leaders, we should be able to move forward. And our national values are enshrined in our constitution, and they are also enshrined in our national anthem. But I think we have forgotten our national values, and the reason why I say that is because sometimes when I take a drive on the highway and I see the street lights that have been put by the various bodies that put street lights on our roads, and I see that the street lights with solar have all been stolen on the highway, I feel that somewhere along the line we have no respect for the things that the investments that we make to get this country to become progressive. So I feel that we need to do a lot of work in defining our national values to the people. He talked about dignity and dreams, restoring the dignity of our citizens and the ability to dream. He talked about the challenges, and he did not shy away from telling us that we do as a nation have a lot of challenges, and we were in a deep hole, and we need to get out of those challenges. And as a result of us working together, we'll be able to share the prosperity that was envisioned by our forefathers and the prosperity that he hopes to achieve for the nation of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, Madam Speaker, this week we have seen the return of David Cameron to as UK Foreign Secretary. He was a former Prime Minister, and he has actually been put into the government again. And when he was speaking in an interview today on CNN, he actually said that as a public servant, he is looking forward to coming back at such a time as this to be able to help steer the country and the world into the right direction. I feel sometimes as an opposition member that we should actually look as members of the opposition on how we can help and aid the government to be able to deliver to the people. We are all citizens of this country, and that we know that the country is in a place that really begs for attention in the positive way. So I really, as a member of the opposition, I really stand here and I say that the president is trying. He is working hard. He is traveling and trying to create bilateral relationships with other countries so that together we can be able to steer the...
Thank you. Your time is up. Member for Nairobi. Member for Molo.
Yes. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I am not the Chair of Finance Bill, I'm the Chair of the Committee of Finance and National Planning. Honorable Speaker, a lot of conversation here has been around subsidy. And I'll try to take the first 2 minutes to really explain why subsidies are not a solution to reduction of price. If you look at a demand curve, Honorable Speaker, a demand curve slide, if you have prices on the vertical on the left and quantity here on the right. A demand curve slides slopes from left to the right, meaning the higher the price, the lower the quantities people will demand of that particular product. Of course, unless that product is probably a luxury good, for example, but all factors constant. A supply curve slants from the right to the left, which means that the higher the price, the higher the quantities, the quantity producers would be willing to take to the market because they want to maximize on that high price, Honorable Speaker. So what a subsidy is supposed to do is move that supply curve to the right by the price that has been subsidized. So the consequence of that, Honorable Speaker, should be to reduce the price of that particular good or service. But what does it actually do? Because that subsidy goes to the producer, the producer has the advantage of taking advantage of that price and maximize his profits. And maybe to bring it into better perspective, we've seen the great success of subsidizing fertilizer. But you'll find that the reduction, the percentage decrease in the cost of fertilizer has not led to a proportionate decrease in the price of maize. Because farmers, now, although they were saved money in their production, they are holding on to their maize because they want better prices. So even though their production cost was lower because of the reduced cost of fertilizer. So the same thing was happening when you were subsidizing maize meal through the millers or fuel through the oil marketers. They saw a window of maximize their profits. And so essentially, we're using taxpayers' money to go into the pockets of a few people who are the oil marketers and the maize millers, and consequently, the price is not reduced. The former Cabinet Secretary Munya told us the price of maize meal will go down to 80 shillings. It never happened. The cost of fuel did not go down, despite us sinking billions of shillings to that, which was never paid, by the way, Honorable Speaker, which has been paid by this regime and this particular budget, Honorable Speaker. So this consequently shows that subsidizing, especially subsidizing consumption, cannot be a way of reduction in prices. It has been proved by very many economic theories. It is practical. Even now, farmers are not willing to sell their maize at a lower cost, even though they were subsidized their fertilizer by more than 160%, Honorable Speaker. But the advantage of this program, it going to farmers, it means that this money is going to farmers' pockets. Those people at the bottom of the pyramid, what we call the bottom-up economic transformation. And therefore, the increase of circulation of money to those farmers by increasing their disposable income, because their cost of production is lower than for example, the previous year it should be, then you'll find they're spending more, and that will even see the velocity of money increasing in the market, Honorable Speaker. Having said that Madam Speaker, what are some of the highlights, as the President said? Education of teachers, recruitment of teachers, clarity in JSS, reduction, as I said, of fertilizer, healthcare, moving from curative, preventive ways of fertilizer, the digital highways, the ICT hubs, because all these, Honorable Speaker, are geared towards enhancing our human capital. Because the biggest resource we've been able to prove as a country we have is not necessarily coffee for export or tea for export. It is human capital. And that is why our remittances from our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, our highest foreign exchange earners. So these honorable speakers, as ably said by the President, will lead to reduction in cost of living and better times for this Republic of Kenya. They are started to be here, and they are even coming, Honorable Speaker. With that, I beg to support.
Thank you. The next chance will go to the member for Busia, Honorable Catherine Omanyo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I listened very carefully to the President's speech that day, and so many things were a little bit amiss, because when he mentioned Gorogoro going down to 60, I come from Busia, and that is our staple meal. I got so excited. But when I went back home this weekend, the reverse is what I found. Gorogoro has not gone down. Instead, it has been hyped. And because of this crisis, taxation, all the drama, you watch at people who would have made maybe Kenyans' life better, the tourists at the airport being tortured. Our country is going down the brink. It is a high time the President listened to people who care about this nation, people who will tell him the truth, people who will call a spade a spade. Just days after he gave us a speech here about reducing spending and everything, we saw the cabinet ministers and the PSS flying helicopters all over the country, using over 300,000 to just go and plant a seedling that is worth 10,000. So I said, where have we really gone wrong to God? Maybe God is punishing us because we have done things, carried the Bibles all over and said God is God, but I think the things that we do, if you do not seal the gaps of corruption in this nation, Kenya, but you insist on adding or increasing the taxpayers, then the same money that you say you have achieved is still going to these tunnels of corruption. So there's a lot of confusion. The president told us there will be no El Nino. The weather forecast people said there will be El Nino. Some of us who are farmers were forced to harvest prematurely, fearing the destruction that would be caused by El Nino. After a while, the president said, no, these people at the forecast department lied to all of us. And then just recently, again, I hear the deputy president say, now whatever we are receiving is El Nino. So we do not know who is the spokesman from the State House to try and say some things and not leave the president himself to keep looking like a cartoon when he says some of these things. So a lot at the moment is lip service. We want real service, and all of us as leaders, let us tell the president the truth and not keep bombarding the State House with a lot of lies. I saw even when he was taking a breath, taking water, people were clapping, and I was wondering, are they clapping because he is thirsty? We should not exaggerate, because real Kenyans, the hustlers, the people we said we will protect, are committing suicide. They are not seeing anything. Anything we say from today as leaders, we must be accountable, because Wanjiku will look at us and there is nothing we will do in future to try and convince them. The hope is gone. Kenyans are not happy, and that is the truth. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The next chance will go to Honorable Nelson Koech. Unlike other members, as directed by the Speaker, you're entitled to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Honorable KK seems to have an issue with the time, but I will try to be very brief to allow other members also to make that contribution. Honorable Speaker, thank you for allowing me to give my remarks on the State of the Nation address by His Excellency the President. For those who care to listen, the President's speech was reassuring. Amid the grim and amid a lot of anxiety in the country, the President sought to reassure the country that we are on the right track. When His Excellency President William Samoei Ruto and his government took over leadership, this country was literally in the brink of an economic collapse. This country was heading to the dogs because of fiscal indiscipline that is manifested even as we are talking. Yesterday, I'm sure many of you have seen online the pictures that are going around on WhatsApp groups and on different fora of the state of our airports and the leaking roofs of our airport. These are some of the things that were done in the dying days of the previous administration. That really paints a picture of exactly how resources, like the President did put, we were living large on borrowed money. We literally did not have any discipline. The President will have had the luxury to come in and sit pretty and also continue borrowing until this country collapsed, or he decided to take that bold step of restoring fiscal discipline and avoiding an unnecessary wastage. Number one is funding of, first of all, funding of production rather than subsidizing consumption. Many have said here, and I'm sure even in our farms, for instance, even in my own farm, you can see the production today in terms of maize. And like he did say in the State of the Nation address, we've had a bumper harvest this year. We are going to have production of almost 80 million bags that is going to feed the country. When you lower food inflation in any economy, you are in the right trajectory. You're actually trying to stabilize, and that is exactly where we are as a country, lowering the cost. I'm sure even in shelves now, when we came in, there was a lot of noise about lowering the cost of flour or unga. And right now, as we are talking, the President did put that we are, prices of unga are retailing between 140, lows of 140 and highs of 175. That tells you that the cost or that the fertilizer subsidy has worked, and the cost of food is going to drop down going forward. The president also went further, and I want to just quickly refer back to the Finance Act, which he also enumerated, importation of fish from outside the country. He mentioned that in Kisumu, Homa Bay, and many other areas along the Lake Victoria, there is big construction of landing sites to enable the fisher folk to continue to harness the potential of the fish farmers and make sure that the fish within the lake region is sold in the market for good value, and farmers there can earn something from the lake. That, I think, is a brilliant move that we also, members of parliament, did participate in making sure that we are able to restore the market and deny the fish that came from outside the country the space in Kenya, or rather the market within the country. On independence of independent institutions, the president did indicate, like has been mentioned by many of my colleagues, that the first thing that he did that evening after being sworn in was to give autonomy, first of all, to appoint the judges of the Court of Appeal, and number two, to give autonomy to the police by allowing the counting officer to be the IG. That brings accountability, and it gives freedom to our independent institutions. On sugar sector, the president did mention that in the new sugar sector, he has written off billions and billions of loans that were owed to different sugar milling companies to allow all those in the sugar growing areas an opportunity again to start afresh and to bring sugar industry back on the fold, and to allow as many farmers as possible to utilize the potential in the sugar sector.
Order, Honorable Koech. Just for the benefit of members, just take your seat for a minute. I know members were asking why the member or the chair for defense was given 10 minutes, and this was a resolution by the House, and it was made that the chairperson on the Committee of Justice and Legal Affairs should speak to the report submitted under Article 132(1) of the Constitution, realization of national values. The chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations is to speak on the report submitted under Article 132(1) of the Constitution relating to the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic. And finally, the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs to speak on the report submitted under Article 247 of the Constitution relating to the state of security of the country. That is why there is an extra 5 minutes for those three chairs, as has been decided on the House. So even as you conclude, Honorable Koech, ensure that you also touch on the international obligations.
I was going to finish with that, but on the international front, economic diplomacy that the president has engaged in for the last 1 year, it's been extremely gainful. I'm sure even today many of you are aware that China is now relaxing its rules, visa requirements for traveling to China to enable ease of business. The president has done so many trips outside the country, all that are meant to benefit this country in terms of financing or different sector, energy, agriculture, and many other sectors that the president has engaged in. Most importantly is in peace. Kenya now has been, is an anchor state for peace within the region, and the president has continuously engaged, particularly on areas of security. It is also noteworthy to the House, Honorable Speaker, that we have our Kenya Defense Forces, amongst other forces within the region, in DRC, trying to restore peace in DRC under the umbrella of ICRAF, and that has been largely successful. In the area of the defense, Kenya that has been restoring some order in Somalia. As we enter into the drawdown by our military officers, it is also worth noting that Kenya has succeeded in restoring some normalcy in Somali, and very soon our officers, as indicated, will be back in the country. And that is important because instability within the region is instability within our country. The president has continued to make sure that countries within our borders continue to be peaceful, and part of that is making sure that the deployment of our officers and security forces continue until there is peace within our borders. Within the country, in the North Rift, you remember, Honorable Speaker, that earlier this year, as a joining force with the Kenya Police Service, the Kenya Defense Forces was sent to the North Rift, and I'm sure honorable members from that region can attest to the fact that even though there has not been complete removal of the insecurity in that region, there has been relative calm in the north of our country. Honorable Speaker, with those very few remarks, I beg to support.
Thank you. Chair, Labour Committee, Member for Runyenjes, Honorable Eric Mushangi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I was sitting here last week when His Excellency the President was delivering his speech, and I was following very keenly to listen to the issues that affect our people. And I am glad that the President spoke to a number of things that really are impacting on our people. And one of the things that he talked about, Honorable Speaker, is an issue to do with farming. Because, Honorable Speaker, a hungry nation or a hungry people, a hungry person is an angry person. What that means is, Speaker, that you cannot please people when they are hungry. And one of the things that the President started by doing was to subsidize fertilizer. And Honorable Speaker, I was listening to him as he was mentioning a farmer from Embu County by name Albert Munyi. And Honorable Speaker, I wish to confirm that together with Honorable Munyi, that many of our farmers have been able to receive the subsidized fertilizer, which they were previously unable to buy, owing to the fact that it was costing up to around 6,500. But they were able to buy the same fertilizer at the same amount. Yesterday, Honorable Speaker, while we were planting trees, the message from our people is that they needed fertilizer the more, because they are now top dressing. A number of them have received it, and they are continuing to receive it from the government of Kenya. And we wish to appreciate and thank the President for thinking about food stability and availability and security in our country, because that is actually what causes a lot of people to make noise when they cannot afford their meals. Honorable Speaker, I was delighted to listen to the President talk about coffee and tea. And I was delighted this morning that I saw His Excellency the Deputy President chair a committee that was supposed to operationalize the money that was made available for the coffee farmers. Because right now, as we speak, the farmers are anticipating, are highly expectant of the money that they are supposed to be given from the sale of their coffee. So we are delighted that our farmers are going to receive the money. What we would like to request from the government is for the CS cooperative to make sure that this money is available for the farmers as fast as possible, so as to make sure that they don't continue suffering from the delays in the disbursement of these funds. Honorable Speaker, I was delighted to listen to the President talk about the universal health coverage. And you see, this is an issue that is very dear to Kenyans, because a healthy nation is a wealthy nation. And I remember a few weeks ago we passed a bill here, the Facilities Improvement Bill, which is supposed now to ensure that our level 4 hospitals, for example, are able to utilize the funds that they collect. Because what used to happen is like, for example, a level 4 hospital like that of Runyenjes, once they received funds, they were not able to utilize the same funds. They were channeling the funds to the county coffers and then wait for the same funds so that they procure fuel for the ambulances or even buy essentials that they could have otherwise bought from the finances that they receive. So we believe that the approach that the president has taken on the issue of UHC is going to work for the benefit of the Kenyan people, so that we can take care of our health. Honorable Speaker, I wish to say that even in the challenging times, we require great leadership, and we thank the president for providing strong leadership as he steers this republic out of the debts that we owe the Western countries, the Chinese. We believe that better days are ahead, and it's just a matter of time. With those few remarks, thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. The next chance will go to the member for Masinga, Honorable Joshua Mwalio.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to be able to speak on the President's speech. I want to say that I like the way the President started in one of the phrases. He said, together with the people of Kenya, we have changed everything. That means that the President is following what the Kenyans are saying in terms of his leadership and in terms of what he needs to do for this country. And I want to say that one of the things that is troubling us is the cost of living. And in the cost of living, it is being addressed by the farmers that have been able to come out and do a serious farming. And by so doing, the government are given the subsidy of the fertilizer, which is able to reach every Kenyan. In Masinga, my constituent, which is in a very remote area in Machakos County, even the farmers receive notifications in their phones on when to pick their fertilizers from the depot. And even there is a conversation that they are saying that the NGCDF should build for them a store, so that we can have a store in the constituency instead of us having it in the regional center. And that is a conversation that we are going. That means there is a goodwill in this fertilizer, and the farmers are taking it very positively. I am aware that the digital transformation is also going on, and I've been able to do in my own constituency in the previous term 4 hubs that have seen a lot of change as far as the young people are concerned, because they have been able to do their work, do their applications, do also their assignments from their various universities and colleges from the same hub which I had to install for them. And therefore, I am sure that as far as the apps that are being implemented by the ministry are concerned, it will be a game changer, because the small ones which we had installed last term, they have already been able to transform some of the gains, and we have seen the young people are happy, and they are able even to look for the jobs from those platforms. Another thing that I picked from the President's speech is that the support that the Ministry of Agriculture is supporting the farmers. For example, they have been able to float from the Department of Crops. They have been able to plot drying areas whereby they can be able to dry the what do you call them, the the grains, the grain drying centers, which are being built in 5 centers. 2 in Meru, 1 in Bomet, and there are others which are, I cannot remember.